This is the best.
Do you hear me?
Of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And a very pleasant good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Busy Wednesday, a lot to get to. Your phone calls, many guests. We've been waiting for months ever since the ugly basketball scandal occurred in early fall to find out what this Blue Ribbon Committee, headed by former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, would come up with. Today we found out. Condi Rice met with the media earlier today.
Our first group of recommendations focuses on creating realistic pathways for student-athlete success. First, we must separate the college track from the professional track by ending one and done. We call on the NBA and the NBPA, who exclusively have power here, to once again make 18-year-olds eligible for the NBA draft so that high school players who are drafted may proceed directly to the NBA. Should the NBA and the NBPA decide not to do so, the Commission will reconvene and consider other measures, including freshman ineligibility and or the lockup of scholarships for a specific period of time.
So what does it all mean? The NBA should eliminate one-and-done rule by allowing players to enter the draft out of high school or any college season. If undrafted player can return to school, stiffer penalties for rule breakers, which can lead to a lifetime ban, allow and encourage access to certified agents to high school and college players to produce more informed decisions. Two former players, Jay Billis and David Robinson.
It did not address, in my judgment, the most important aspect of college basketball and college sports in general, and that's the amateurism piece. It basically doubled down on what they call the collegiate model and said that college basketball was somehow separate from professional basketball when it's really a professional endeavor in every way, shape, or form. And it makes it seem like, education and money are mutually exclusive, and they're not. I was a little surprised at that, and I was surprised at some of the moralizing that was done. Sort of the idea that, the college degree is the most valuable thing on the planet, and look how much money is invested in the education of these young men, and they should turn away from other opportunities in order to take it. That's all fine. But, to me, if it's so valuable, let it stand alone in the marketplace and show its value. I think we can allow money into the system, but they didn't really look at that.
I think the most significant thing is that dialogue has been opened up. All these different constituents who, everyone from, NBA to apparel companies to the NCAA coaches and administrators, I think everyone kind of came to the table and started to discuss some of these matters, which, we're in different silos before. It opened up a tremendous dialogue, and I think we all agree that we have to do what's in the best interest of these kids.
Okay. We will take your phone calls in a moment. Let's get to the guest list, tell you what we will be discussing this afternoon. Hayden Hurst, one of the best tight ends in recent SEC history. Where will he go in the draft? We'll talk to him coming up shortly. Matt Jones, his reaction to Dr. Rice's proclamations. Laura Rutledge, live from Dallas, site of the NFL draft. And Heather Dinnich, she's at the College Football Playoff Committee meetings. What was accomplished, if anything? Your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Hugh, Deep Gap, North Carolina.
Paul.
Hello, Hugh. How are you?
Well, the last two times I tried to find you, you were on sabbatical. And on one of those occasions, Peter Burns had Marcus Spears on, and that's always a treat. He's a new, svelte, skinny Marcus Spears. Kind of hard to recognize the dude with all the weight he's lost. But that kind of plays into what I've got on my mind. If you remember, or in the event you don't, the first show you had after the national championship, I made the suggestion that Jalen Hurts might be better off playing a different position if he has any ambitions to play in the NFL. And here's the dichotomy. Do you put the team's needs or the players' dreams first? And as critical as I've been of John Calipari, he always puts the players' dreams first, and I've been critical of him for that. I think it cost us at least one national championship. But there would be nothing wrong with Coach Saban soliciting from all 30 of the NFL teams if whether or not they would be willing to consider Jalen Hurts as a quarterback to draft him. And if the event is that they're not, the point that Marcus Spears made is that you do not become a receiver overnight. That takes a lot of work, whether you're playing the slot or tight end or whatever. The RPO offense is great, and Dan Mullen's right. You got to be willing to fill the vacuum when the defense gives it to you, but half of that requirement is delivering the pass on a timely basis. And by any means you want to judge it, looking at Jalen Hurts' last 3 games, he's a failure as a passer, and consequently, any future he has in the NBA is highly questionable in the NFL as a quarterback. I don't know. I'll leave it at that. But there's the answer to it. With his dad being a football coach and in the Alabama program for 2 years, highly unlikely he's going to find a magic elixir to make him a passer. Now, on the comic side of things, I got this to say about Brother Jeremy Pruitt. He reminds me a lot of a guy that was one of my all-time favorite players and coaches, and that's Yogi Berra. I mean, he's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. There's nothing wrong with his colloquial Southern working man's vocabulary. It's highly different, and in truth, it will probably resonate with a lot of kids that are good football players. You're never really sure what he said after he said it, but down deep, he is a stern, very serious football mind who has a high degree of expectation for his players, and he probably will get that program turned around. Whether he can carry it to the level they want it to be, that's another question. Paul, thank you. Talk to you later, bub.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Tony is in San Diego. You're on the air. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Finebaum. How you doing, sir?
We are well. Thank you.
Good to talk to you. A long time no talk, Paul. Still watch you every day and your listeners and everything. What's on my mind, Paul, is something that's not new, but I have read and heard that these rumors are a little closer to home regarding from the recruiters at other schools about Coach Saban retiring soon and using that to their advantage. Now, I know that's been going on forever, but in particular, I wanted to know if you knew that one of the schools is over there in Athens, and the other school down in Tallahassee. But in particular, I know things on the up and up in Athens, and I agree with your comments the other day that, it's kind of like in Tuscaloosa around 2010. There's no doubt that Georgia is building a, top-notch program over there. But do you think Coach Kirby is aware of these recruiters using those tactics? And, of course, I know who Coach Kirby, smart.
No, hold on. Let me make sure. Hold on a second, Tony. I want to make sure I understand you. We're talking about rumors about Saban, and you're asking me, am I aware of Kirby Smart being aware of what?
His recruiters using that as a tool against Alabama's recruiting. Let me say this. I believe there are several coaches that are using this currently against Nick Saban. Right. And I believe that number will continue to grow. And I think, quite frankly, it's going to be one of Nick Saban's biggest issues down the road. He can say whatever he wants, but his competitors are going to start using. He's alluded to it already. Oh, yeah.
But his competitors, and I think Kirby Smart right now is his biggest competitor from a recruiting standpoint, will obviously use anything against him. And the best thing they can use against him is his age.
Yeah. Well, do you think that that's being a little drastic from the recruiter standpoint?
No. No. I mean, Tony, what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm permanently disabled right now, Paul. So
well, let me ask you this then. Okay,
yeah.
That's fair, and I didn't mean to put you in an awkward spot
worries.
there. But if you were in business for the sake of argument, and you were running a Chick-fil-A and a McDonald's came in down the street, are you going to tell your customers that McDonald's is good, or are you going to try to sell your place and find any edge that you can against the other place?
Well, I'm obviously going to just do the latter.
Exactly.
But I'm not going to. I'm not going. But at the same time, I'm not going to take cheap shots at McDonald's.
Well, there's no. By the way, Tony, there is nothing cheap about mentioning somebody's age.
Well,
unless you're Jim from Tuscaloosa.
True that, Paul. Well, listen, man.
And then you would just be lying if you said he was 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, or 73.
Yeah, and that you shoot 57 every time you play golf, right? Paul, thanks a lot, man. Great.
Tony, you be well. Glad to hear from you as always. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Can I give a quick shout out to Fatback in Anniston, Rob in Opelika, Alabama, and TR in Dothan, Alabama, and we got a big Roll Tide fan out here in San Diego, about 500 members. There's about 1,200 member club up in L.A., and everybody loves your show, Paul.
Tony, I really appreciate that. You call soon. Thanks very much.
Okay, bud. Take care. Okay. Roll Tide.
You got it. We're up against a break. Hayden Hurst, where is he going? Could he go high? Could. Great player. Great former South Carolina Gamecock. Seems like he was just there yesterday. Maybe a few more days beyond yesterday. He'll be with us coming up in a moment.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. The NFL draft is tomorrow night, and Hayden Hurst will hear his name at some point. He is, of course, the All-American tight end with South Carolina. Hayden, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and I was reading an article about you. You said you weren't going to the draft because you've already been down this road before. Good afternoon, and explain to us what you're. I know what you were talking about, but you've had a draft before in your life, haven't you?
Yeah, yes, sir. A few years ago, back in 2012, the baseball draft, was kind of told along the same lines. Late first round, early second round, and things didn't go according to plan. I think. At the time, what I heard, my agent priced me out and kind of fell off to the later round. So, I just wanted to take some pressure off myself this go around and enjoy it from my couch.
So you've answered the question I was about to ask you. Where will you be and with whom will you be? Will your family be around you?
Yes, sir. It's going to be my dad, my mom, my sister, my agent, myself, and I'll be watching from Jacksonville.
Okay, so we've seen your name pretty prominent. I read an article in the Charlotte paper the other day. It talked about they were very interested in bringing you in as Greg Olson's heir apparent. I know others have as well. What do you hear? What have you been told by various teams?
I've heard kind of in that 16 to 32 range. That late first round is the range that I'm projected to go. Multiple teams have been interested, but. At this point, everyone's kind of laying low, I guess, because they don't want to show their hands, for tomorrow night.
This may be a loaded question because you want to go high. Obviously, it helps situate you for the next couple of years. But do you have a preference? What would you like in terms of tomorrow night?
I'd love to hear my name called in that range, in that first round range. It'd be awesome for my confidence. But I think most importantly, I just want to get on one of those playoff teams, a team that's successful. I think it would be great for me, step in and with one of those quarterbacks. I've been mocked to the Saints with Drew Brees and things with the Patriots. Obviously, with Tom Brady would be great. But whatever happens. It's out of my control, and I'll just be with my family tomorrow night, and we're going to enjoy it.
Hayden, let's talk about your position because, depending on where you are in college, it's utilized, maybe underutilized, but in pro football, the tight end is a critical position. Explain to us lay people the difference between college and pro and why we see it significantly more in pro football.
I think it's just an evolving position. I know some offenses in college ask their tight ends to do a ton, in pass protection in the run game and then getting vertically down the field. I think that's kind of where football's heading. You have to be able to stretch the field vertically, which they do in the NFL, which opens up your number one guys outside. It makes those one-on-one, man-to-man matchups a lot easier. But, like I said, I think that's kind of where the game's heading, and that's why you see more and more of these tight ends going early.
No doubt. Hayden Hurst with us will be in Jacksonville tomorrow night, obviously, with his family. Hayden, if you don't mind, I would like to spend just a second talking about your college career. You mentioned the baseball preamble, but the last couple of years, especially under Will Muschamp, we've seen a transformation and an infusion of energy into that program in Columbia. How was it on the inside?
I mean, I love Coach Muschamp. What he's doing up there in Columbia, if you're a South Carolina fan, I'd be extremely excited. The energy that he brings with that coaching staff every single day. I mean, it's a great environment. It's a great time to be a Gamecock. I'm excited to watch from the sideline and see what those guys do. I think the program's obviously heading in the right direction. Then you got Coach McClendon heading the offense now, which I think he's going to open it up and utilize his playmakers. So, like I said, if you're a South Carolina fan right now, I'd be extremely excited.
Let me get your thoughts on Jake Bentley. Obviously, he's still extremely young, but unbelievably talented. Your impressions of spending a little bit of time with him?
Yeah, Jake's an awesome kid. I mean, off the field, comes from a great family. Coach Bentley being the running back coach, I got to know that family really well. Jake's one of my best friends. Like you said, extremely, extremely bright young man. And then as far as football goes, he's an extremely talented quarterback. And I think with Coach BMAC, being the offensive coordinator this year, he's going to take some pressure off of Jake. I'm expecting a lot of big things out of him. He's a talented kid, and I think, I'm excited to watch what Jake can do.
I think the end of last year, especially the Michigan win, surprised some people around the country. But you being at the forefront, at the vanguard of this program's rise back up again, what would you say Coach Muschamp has brought in that and again, with all due respect to Coach Spurrier, I mean he had an amazing run there, a couple of 3 straight 11-win seasons. But what would you say if you had to pinpoint something or a number of things that have changed dramatically under Coach Muschamp? What are they?
I would just say the mindset he brings every single day. He challenges us, or challenges those guys in everything that you do. We never take any reps off. We never take a day off, and those guys grind. I mean, whether you're Deebo Samuel or you're a third-string guy on special teams, Coach Muschamp is going to challenge you, and he's going to bring out the best player in you. And that's why I think we had the success this year, going 9-4, and then he preaches, take teams to the fourth quarter because we're going to out-tough them. And, I mean, I think what we did to Michigan proves that.
And finally, you played in what we believe and most sensible people believe is the toughest and the best football conference in America. Your thoughts now that it's over, and I realize tomorrow night begins an incredibly exciting chapter, but just the grind of the SEC and how you think that has helped prepare you for the next level.
Oh, man, I know people outside the conference really don't understand it, and they get tired of hearing it, but the SEC is the best football in the country, and there's no doubt about it. And I was able to do it at the highest level for 2 years at South Carolina. I was named all-conference, and that's why I think that I'm the best tight end coming out, because I did it in college at the highest level for 2 years. And then, I don't have any fear heading into this thing. I know it's going to obviously be a different beast once I get to the NFL, but I feel extremely prepared, having played in the SEC for 2 years and doing what I did.
Well, Hayden, I know tomorrow night is going to be very exciting, and you'll hear your name, I think, reasonably soon. But I'm sure you'll pace yourself because we always watch that, and it's fun for us as fans. It's not easy when you're sitting there with your family around, but I can't wait to see it. I know you can't. Thank you for coming on, and best wishes tomorrow night.
Yes, sir, Paul. Thank you for having me.
You got it. One of the great players in recent SEC history, especially at that position. Hayden Hurst joining us from the University of South Carolina. Tomorrow night he'll be part of the NFL. We'll take a break, get your reaction to that, and more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Much more to come on this Wednesday. Stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Anyway, welcome back. This next caller might be on the top 10 of the most annoying callers, but we love him anyway. Jeff is in Chicago. How are you, Jeff?
Jesus, most annoying.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the smartest or the most handsome. that would really be more appropriate.
You're probably right about that, but not to me, Jeff, because you tend to annoy people, though. I will tell you. I know there's one person that said, I don't ever want to hear that guy again. That's a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, well, I would guarantee you that my calls, my thoughts, my actions, everything about me is superior to whoever you're talking about. But I guess the reason I was calling you was about this cockamamie college basketball committee to improve college basketball. I mean, I know college sports feels like they need a committee for everything these days, and then it needs to be a long, drawn-out process. But, God, I mean, most of these ideas they came up with, I could have written down on a napkin at Denny's at 3 a.m., half drunk, and turned it in the next day, and I would have come up with the exact
But, Jeff,
thing.
you're a smart guy. You know what this is really about.
It's about protecting the NCAA.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, none of the ideas, I mean, it's almost like the committee is missing the entire point of what has led to the problems, which is, the model of amateurism, which, look, I love. I love college basketball. I love college sports, but that's where the problem lies. And look, I know you're a big Condoleezza Rice fan. I do not have anything against her, but I guarantee
Jeff, let me make it clear.
Let
me make it clear on Condoleezza Rice. I know her fairly well personally. My affection for her is personal. I stay out of what she has done in the political arena. And in terms of what she said today, remember what she did for President Bush. She was the Secretary of State. She's a diplomat. And what we heard today was diplomacy 101.
Yeah, that's interesting because I know she really wants to be involved with sports, and
she really would like to be the next NFL commissioner. That is unlikely to happen, but that's what she
background in sports, though, and I'm not trying.
Well, she once dated a former NFL player. That's what I know.
That's another problem. The college sports seems to want people who've never played sports.
No, what you want, Jeff, is you want someone who can command attention, and if you put some former coach up there today, no one would have cared. If you put some former president up there, no one would have cared. Former college president, I might add. But by putting Condoleezza Rice up, everyone stops and goes, oh, let's see what she has to say.
Yeah, it's interesting because some of the stuff she said was certainly interesting. Like I guess they're trying to go back to freshmen not being eligible.
Now, that was easily the dumbest thing I heard all morning.
I mean, or here's another one. If a player leaves early, let's freeze the scholarship for 3 years. So now the answer is let's give out less scholarships.
But Jeff, let me ask you a key question. Who appointed this committee?
Look, I have no clue.
No, the answer is Mark Emmert. So if there's a scandal
that works for them,
if there's a scandal that is associated with this program, and I appoint I-Man to chair the committee to investigate, I'm going to feel pretty good that he's going to take care of us. Okay, this was an inside job. You know that.
Yes, I do know that. I just was looking for your opinion on it, and hey, now I found it. I'll go back to being annoying now. Okay, even more so than usual. All right.
This guy did not like me calling him annoying. And he was even more annoying after I called him annoying. Let's continue with more of your phone calls at 855-242-7285. John is in Tennessee, and you are on the air. Hello, John.
Hey, Paul. How are you today?
We are great. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for taking my call as usual and for giving us a voice out there, okay?
You bet. Thank you.
I got two things I wanted to talk to you about today. The one was Jeremy Pruitt's remarks, being a Tennessee fan. And the other is the changing of the college football rules. On the Jeremy Pruitt, I feel like what he had to say the other day was rude, it was uncalled for, and it was unfounded. I've been a Tennessee fan for 33 years, and attending, booster functions and quarterback club functions. There are people who've been there, been fans 80 years, 70 years, 60 years, on down the line. And the Tennessee fans have been through a lot the past 10 or 15 years. I don't think you should walk right in the door and start attacking Tennessee fans. I think you should at least have a year or two under your belt, before you go attacking people. Because I'm sitting here thinking he's attacking me. I feel like he's attacking me personally, okay? And, I feel like I've been here 33 years, and, he had the third largest spring crowd. I mean, that's including Johnny Majors, Philip Fulmer, and everyone, and then I've been yelling for the Vols, when he was a toddler, or he was coaching Alabama or Georgia or somewhere, and that attitude of his, it don't go nowhere with me, okay? I feel like I'm a lot meaner than he'll ever be, and so that just doesn't carry any weight with me. But, I was at one game it was the Florida game a couple years ago, Dobbs, about last year, I guess, and they recorded I DVR'd the game, and it was a play we're trying to cause confusion, and we were recorded to 113 decibels. And then at a Florida game later in that year, they were trying to do the same thing, and they were only recorded at 103 decibels. So I think the Tennessee fans, given it all, for a long time. And so I have a question for you. I've been listening. I noticed what Matt said about the incident at Georgia. I'm not familiar with that incident. And I've heard two or three other people talk about that incident with the coach or whatever at Georgia. And I was going to ask you about if you know more about what that incident was about, and if you think that he could be volatile or violent towards our players.
I'm not sure I do know what the incident is about, John.
Okay, I know that Matt mentioned it, and I've heard a couple other people mention that same incident, so I was just curious about that. I think, that was just a little bit too strong a comment your first day in the door, okay?
Well, the only thing I will say, and I'll agree with you on Jeremy Pruitt, I know everyone has an opinion on this, but you never criticize your fans who are loyal to a fault and who will do anything for you. And I was surprised yesterday. Some people have said, well, maybe you have to give him credit. He's a straight shooter. But to me, that was stumbling out of the gate. That was inarticulate, yes. And it was wrong. Beyond that, I like a lot about Jeremy Pruitt, but I'm really surprised Philip Fulmer didn't call him in and say, listen, Jeremy, is that what you really meant to say?
See, I agree with you. Tennessee fans, I supported Butch Jones. Butch Jones or Derek Dooley, I did not think they should have been hired from the day they won. But once they're hired, I supported them, and I'll support Pruitt, as long as he don't hurt players or whatever. But, I just felt like that was just a little bit too I like his business attitude and everything like that. He didn't have the autograph day, so that's going to cut the fans down. Then those other events that were mentioned that were going on at the same time. But I just felt like that was just a little too rude without even having played a game. We're talking about a spring game, and then he had the third largest attendance, and then not happy with that, we've been there. We've been there when he was a toddler, when he wasn't even born, when he was a glimmer in his daddy's eye. He needs to wait a little bit before he starts calling us out. That's what I think.
Well, what you're supposed to do, John, is thank the people that came to support you, not blast the people who didn't, because it is a spring game, and I don't know. Listen, I haven't spoken to Jeremy Pruitt about it. I wish he would elaborate, because I think he's hurt himself a little bit. But in the end, he'll be defined by what he does on the football field, not what he says in a post-game news conference. We thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Bobby, who is in Tennessee. Good afternoon.
Hello, Paul.
Hi there.
How you doing?
We are doing great, Bobby. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mr. Finebaum. Thank you for taking my call. I enjoy your show, and just if you're ever up around Dyersburg, Tennessee, look me up, and I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Well, I've been to Dyersburg. I grew up in Memphis, so I know exactly how to get there.
Well, good deal. And if you bring Darriel and I, man, with you, I'll fire my grill up.
I'm going to call both of them, and I'm going to get the truck going to Dyersburg right now.
That sounds great. Anyway, I'd just like to comment about Coach Pruitt. I think it's a new day in Tennessee football, and Coach Pruitt is going to tell it like it is, not just what we want to hear.
Yeah, listen, I understand that.
Yes,
but what does telling it like it is have to do with the crowd size for Saturday's game?
I'm not sure if he meant it toward the players or the fans, but
Well, that's why he should. That's why he should explain it.
I agree with you. I agree he should be a little bit, he should explain himself a little more about it. But, give him a few years and just see what happens. I agree with you 100%. Mr. Finebaum, his real test is going to come on the football field.
Oh, yeah. By the way, no one will care this fall what he said last spring. They'll only care what he says after wins or loses. Listen, not a big deal. We're not being that judgmental here. We're just simply pointing out a couple of facts. Or forget facts. We're pointing out a couple of opinions. Let's take a break. More to come. More of your phone calls. 855-242-7285. And we're back with more after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Anyway, welcome back to our program. Mark Kubiak gave his top 10 caller list earlier, unloading on Legend, of all people. I think everyone knows the show by now. Legend is next.
What's up, Coach? What's going on, brother?
Legend, your man Kubiak, not too kind a minute ago.
Yeah, I'm like the Dan Marino of this draft. Are they blind, Paul? Are they blind?
Kubiak, would you like to say?
That is a perfect analogy. A lot of talent, no rings. You can't kiss the rings if you're Dan Marino. You don't have any.
Hold on one second. Mark, Legend.
How many rings have you got, Kubiak? Because I got 18 in my
No.
Oh, now you have 18? I got 20.
What are the 18 rings? Like, tell us what they are,
no,
Legend.
Legend, I want you to talk directly to Kubiak because he said basically same call every day, not particularly compelling. So talk to him directly because I'm not part of this.
See, that's my exact thoughts of Mark Kubiak right there. He just nailed my analogy of him right there. See, he don't like me because of who I represent, Paul. I represent the Alabama nation and the Sidewalk alumni. That just goes against everything that Mark Kubiak stands for. He can't stand me because he can't stand Alabama. He's a Yankee, Paul, at the end of the day. He wasn't no talent. If it walked up and slapped him in the face, Paul, he wasn't no talent. He's talking about some guy named Hugh. Who the hell is Hugh? I'm serious, Paul. Who is Hugh? Have I missed parts of the show or something?
Maybe since the show left Bama, you've missed a little bit. Expanded.
Hey, Legend, Hugh ain't you.
Expanded. Hugh from Deep Gap's got some great pipes. Thoughtful questions.
You know something, Legend. You're Legend. You are right.
This is Ric Flair. Woo!
See, that's the thing. It's not Ric Flair. If you're talking about the best, Ric Flair was one of the best on a small market thing there. You got to go big, like Hulk Hogan. Remember? Like the World Wrestling Federation. You can stay down in Ric Flair, but he had to come over to the big boy table and come over to the WWF with Hulk. All right? If you want to come over to the big boy table, just change it up. We'll welcome you in. Just come into the big boy. Come to the national show.
But a fake, dude. Ric Flair was the truth. You talking about some guy named Hugh from the Gap. I've never even heard this guy, dude. That's like taking the 6th pick in the draft and drafting dadgum Lamar Jackson or something. That don't make sense, dude. Now, look at the history of the show. Or you going to do a mock draft, at least have some knowledge. How long have you even listened to this
Hey,
show?
Paul, real quick. Who was the first caller on today's show that you chose?
Hugh from Deep Gap.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess he was so compelling, wasn't he? I missed it for some reason.
Well, Legend, I just think Kubiak, I don't think Kubiak's against Alabama, but he's tired. I think he has Alabama fatigue.
Well, that's why he should be on the Finebaum show. Alabama helps you build this show, brother. We love you. You are like the grand marshal of the Finebaum show, but without Alabama football, brother. If you had to depend on Auburn and Georgia and LSU and Florida, you'd still be in Birmingham, brother. If it wasn't for Alabama, Kubiak wouldn't even
it, Kubiak? What about it?
I mean, he's got a point. You know, he's got a point. If there was not for Alabama, and we found we can't not rely on Georgia and Florida yet. I'm just, I want the Florida and Georgia fans to find out and come with that passion that you guys have, and maybe to mix it up with them.
Well, Legend, now you're starting to develop what it takes to get into the top 5. Like, this is a great call. Bring this every time. Don't bring this just when you're called out. That's weak.
Who you calling weak, dude? I'll read through these things and show you weak.
Hey, Legend.
Who is that?
Hey, let me warn you, Randy. You don't call a guy like Legend weak. Legend is that? Would you say that? I mean, those are fighting words, Legend.
Yeah, I mean, watch that weak talk, dude. Keep that to yourself. Put a little bass in your voice when you talk to me, too. But on a serious note, Paul, let me just get a little football note in here. There is a quarterback controversy at the University of Alabama, but it's between Matt Jones and Hayden Hurst.
Good stuff.
It's for the backup position, brother. Anybody knows football knows two.
So you're suggesting Jalen Hurts could end up number 3 on the roster?
He could end up like Kubiak holding the clipboard on the sideline.
Thanks, Legend. Millie is up next.
Well, hi, Paul. I probably won't have much time today, but there's a couple of things I'd like to say. Number one is that I'm happy you guys are back from your trips these weeks. You don't know about the airplanes anymore. And number two, I'm really, really upset by how nervous the people seem to be about the football things, winning titles and things. Why don't they just concentrate on the first game and just let it go with that? Don't you think it would be a good idea? Instead of trying to go all the way, Paul?
Go all the way where, Millie?
Trying to worry about the last game. They should worry about the first game. Don't you think so?
I don't know.
More? I mean, that makes sense. Don't you agree?
And
let the last games take care of themselves, kind of, because they ultimately will.
You're right, Millie. 3 more hours to go.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts.
This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We welcome you back. Second hour is live and underway. We'll talk to Matt Jones here in a minute. Get his reaction to Condoleezza Rice's report, which came out earlier today. More phone calls, more guests to come. Matt is in Gainesville, Georgia. Hello, Matt.
Was it Big Ten John? Was he saying that Georgia doesn't have passion?
Was that said today?
Yeah.
That was Kubiak, I believe. Oh, that was no. That was Legend.
Yeah. Hold on, that was Legend.
Legend that said
Legend. That. Yeah. Legend needs to go back to his carnival, from what I hear. But I appreciate the number 9 ranking. And let me tell you about passion in the Georgia Bulldog Nation. I get all these tweets from these Alabama fans saying that I'm this and I'm that, and they hit the mute button. Thank you. That's what I want. My whole point of calling the Paul Finebaum Show is to get the Tuscaloosaers mad and ready and mad, because I don't like them. We want to stomp them. But I want to sing you a little song, Paul, debuting on the Finebaum Show about Georgia. There's nothing finer in the land than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs! Sing it!
Matt is up next in San Antonio. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good, Paul. How you doing?
We are great. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I heard some news on Tech Tags Radio.
What's that, Matt?
I've been listening to Tech Tags Radio lately, and they were talking about how Jimbo Fisher, how he's supposed to do this year.
What did they say?
They were talking about how they think he might go 8-4 this year, but I really don't think he's going to go 8-4 this year, Paul. They think
You obviously think they'll do better, right, Matt?
Yeah, just to be honest.
Well, how I guess that?
I think, honestly, because he returns 8 starters on the offensive line, he returns 8 starters on the defensive line. Yeah, I know he has a bunch of freshmen that are probably going to be playing on that offense and defensive line. But to be honest with you, I'll give you my reasons why I think this team is going to do much better than they did last year when they finished 7-5. Honestly, if you look at this team, because they returned those 8 starters and they have improved a much better secondary team in the secondary, and they have a better defensive coach than they had last year, was Chavis. And if you look at what he did at Notre Dame, he turned a struggling Notre Dame defense into a better defense within a year. I think he can do the same thing at A&M, Paul. And
well, listen, I'm starting to come around on A&M. I do think they'll have a better than expected year, Matt. We are on the same page on that.
And I only have like 3 questions I want to ask you, Paul, today.
Okay, sure.
And I got 1 question for the guys as well. The third one's for the guys.
Yeah, let's start with the guys.
Okay. You guys there?
Yeah, what's up, Matt?
All right. Jimbo's been getting a lot of negative recruiting from Oklahoma and Texas. They've been using the fact that someone left him a mess of negative recruiting, saying, "Oh, you shouldn't go to A&M because look at the Kyle Murray situation. He left because they couldn't handle the whole Johnny Manziel mess." What does Jimbo got to do to get that negative recruiting off his back?
Especially Boomer Sooner in the studio. Would you like to answer that?
Yes, I would, Matt. I think negative recruiting happens everywhere, and you're fooling yourself if you don't think Jimbo Fisher negatively recruits against Oklahoma and Texas Tech and LSU. It's just a part of the game. I don't like it. Unfortunately, that's a part of it now because coaches do everything they can to get an edge when you've got $10 million contracts on the table. You've got to win or you're out on your can.
And I'll just add to that, don't lose 3 5-star quarterbacks like Sumlin did.
Yeah, he had all of them in their camp, and they're all not there.
Bobby is up next. Bobby is calling from Birmingham. Good afternoon, Bobby.
How you doing today, buddy?
Bobby, I am doing well, thank you.
Yeah, a nice crowd Saturday down in Bryant-Denny.
Not bad.
Yeah,
not as good as Georgia, but not bad.
They had about 70,000 people. That was enough.
I just said not as good as Georgia, but not bad, Bobby. No big deal.
I'm not worried about Georgia.
I know you're not. Anytime you say that, I know you're not worried about Georgia recruiting, even though they beat you guys last year. And
I'm not worried about Georgia. And your boy and his mock draft.
Mark Kubiak?
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be on his mock draft list. 3/4 of the people on that boy wouldn't take but a half a season to jump across him and be in the Hall of Fame.
What? Bobby, you're right on the cusp, like number 11.
Bobby, you know you would be on my top 5 any day of the week.
And Randy, I'm surprised at you, Randy.
Randy?
Why, Bobby? I'm a huge Bobby from Birmingham fan. And if
you following the wrong boys when you following Mark and Big T and John, boy, I wouldn't follow them across the street. There's no around the corner.
So you'd be a sleeper pick. I mean, just because you're not in the top 10 doesn't mean you're not top 10 worthy.
Did you hear what I said? 3/4 of them in the top 10, I'd jump past them and be in the Hall of Fame.
Bobby, would it be a fair statement to say that you have some issues with Kubiak?
No, I'm just mad because we got to wait a decade to play Notre Dame again. I might not be around then.
Bobby, you're still a young man, aren't you?
I'm 71 years old.
No, you're younger than Jim.
Yeah. I had anniversary Friday. 48 years.
You're how many years, Bobby?
48.
48 years, and I'm assuming to the same woman?
Yeah.
48, that's remarkable, Bobby. Well, I'll tell you what, many congratulations. Do you have any big plans or what?
After 48 years, Paul, I did everything but die. I'll sit down and watch the Bill Maher show.
Well, don't do that, Bobby. Actually, I'm going to be in Birmingham Saturday, so if you die Friday so I can come by your funeral Saturday. At least I feel like I've done something.
Hey, as far as the quarterback situation out there.
Yeah, what about it?
We pay Saban enough to name a starting quarterback. He don't need all them PR, man. And you know, his younger brother signed with Alabama.
Yeah, I read that, Bobby. I keep up with Alabama.
But I saw him play last season at Thompson.
What do you think?
He's pretty good.
Okay.
My grandson go to Thompson. Well, Paul, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm gonna say this to Randy, and I'm gonna let y'all go. You better be careful about them boys, Randy, because about 2,000 years ago, they laid down some palm leaves for old boy, and the next Sunday they say crucifying, so you better watch them boys.
Happy Easter, Bobby.
Right.
Gooch is up next in Mississippi. Hey, Gooch.
Hey, Paul. That Bobby's beautiful. I love that man. Awesome. Hey, I wanted to ask you one question, Paul. There's of course, I'm an economics major. I went to Ole Miss. And I just want to talk to you one quick question.
Sure.
Nothing too serious. Of course, I just want to let you know that Jerry Lawler's doing much better. He had a stroke.
Glad to hear.
But he's doing better. He's back in the game. But there's a third leg of college football that we never talk about, and that's these foundations at every university, because every university is funded by the state and tuition. And then, of course, you got all this other money flowing in, and every school has one. I mean, hell, Ole Miss has got one out here that's got $1 billion in it. And it's not accountable to anyone or anything.
That's how they pay all the salaries.
Well, I know that, and that's how they fly the jets all around the country, and that's what they do. But who is driving that, and who are the guys behind it? And every university has got a different goal for this and that and this and that and this and that.
Well, you know, every foundation has a director, and my guess is not always. That director is either a pretty smart businessman, a former player, someone who used to be at the university that has his hands on every list of donors and influential people in the alumni organization. But yeah, that's how they do it.
But has it ever been have these guys like, you know, Chris Lowe and all these?
Yeah, no, I've seen.
I've looked into them.
Yeah, they have, and usually the results are pretty scandalous.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's amazing because you know what it costs to keep a jet flying. And every one of these schools have got them out there left and right. But the whole thing
But you know what they do, though, Gooch? I was at a private hangar the other night. I had to go. I was going somewhere, and it wasn't me. I wouldn't know how to charter a plane, but the company that brought me in did. And what happens, though, is this. Let's say Nick Saban. I mean, they have a school plane for him, just for the sake of argument. That plane is not always available. But
I know.
Do you know that the University of Alabama and every other major university, they get all their top donors, and they work with them, especially the ones with planes, especially the ones with nice planes, and they all volunteer time. So there's a system, and I don't really know how it works, but it was explained to me, where Saban needs to go somewhere.
Not just the plane.
But if, let's say, he needs to go somewhere.
Well, I want him to go there.
And the president is using the school. There's always a plane there because people. If I own the Alabama Goose Egg Association, for the sake of argument, whatever that means, I want to be close to that program. So you got my plane whenever you want it.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the plane.
No, but that's how it works, though. Is my point.
I fly my plane, but my point is, what's their agenda of these foundations?
Well, the agenda is to pay the difference, because there's only so far a state school can go in paying a salary. Usually, if you broke down Nick Saban or Gus Malzahn or Kirby Smart's salary, it would be very small per se. The foundation accounts for the TV, the radio, the endorsements, the speaking. That's where the other 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million come from. It's not from the school. Those salaries are usually sometimes they're not even, you get a basic salary. I say basic, more than most of us make, but not $11 million. We're up against a break. Matt Jones knows all about this stuff. He will come on the program in a moment. He'll react to what happened today with Condoleezza Rice, the effect, if any, it has on college basketball.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome all of you back. Glad you're here. And we had quite an interesting morning, months of speculation. Finally saw Condoleezza Rice reveal this Blue Ribbon Commission's report. This came after the ugly basketball scandal of last fall. Who better to get reaction to that than Matt Jones from Kentucky Sports Radio. Matt, first of all, it's been too long. I think the last time we saw you was you had just finished your Taylor Hicks imitation. Have you been on American Idol since then?
First of all, good to hear from you. As soon as Kentucky loses, I feel like America just forgets me, and it makes me sad. But I haven't done American Idol since then, but I have had people make fun of me for that little clip for about 2 months straight, including they did a roast of me here in Louisville, and that clip came up as part of it. So I do appreciate it. You've added to my legacy from that.
Yeah. By the way, I saw a Twitter picture of that roast. That man, we were all devastated. John Hayes, Kubiak, and we would have driven the truck up for that one.
Yeah. Well, I wish you had. It was actually a blast. I mean, there were about 400 people in Louisville that came out. It was for a charity, and I got absolutely destroyed on about everything imaginable. But I tell you got to have. I don't know. Have you ever been roasted before? You got to have a.
Yes, it's pretty interesting to do because you literally get taken apart bit by bit.
Yes, and the vast majority of people are not funny in this world.
No.
So and since all the people doing it were also kind of friends of mine, I really wanted them to be funny. So I got people I knew to help them so they'd be funny, and then I realized that all I'd done is just make it worse for myself when they actually destroyed me on the jokes.
And one more, and I hate to keep getting off the subject here, but was it Politico who did this big cover story on you about possibly challenging the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, so Politico came and spent 2 or 3 days with me earlier this year. Went to some of my shows and. So they did that. They were here in January, but they saved it to release during the NCAA tournament. I'd almost forgotten about it. And that's really been an interesting thing because, I'm the exact same human being I was, the exact same guest I've always been. But then all of a sudden people act like they know about you for the first time around the country. And I got all kinds of weird messages. I probably had 35 or 40 people, Paul, write me saying they wanted to work for me, and I was like, I don't have anything for you to do. I host a radio show. I'm just, you can come work for me, but you won't make any money, and there's nothing for you to do. But that story, that was very nice of them, but it certainly made my life kind of different for a while.
By the way, when is this election that you are allegedly going to?
Well, first of all, I haven't said I'm running yet. That was but it's 2020, so it's a couple years away.
Okay, so it won't be this year.
The one thing, here's the best part about it. The one thing all of your listeners that are big Trump supporters and snowflakes like me can all agree on. We all dislike Mitch McConnell. So the good part about it is whatever you think about everybody else, he is one guy most people can unify against. And so maybe we'll do it in a couple of years. And if so, you better come visit me.
Oh, no. I will be at your swearing in. I promise you.
Well, I would love to have it. And I'll even save a couple seats at it for Finebaum callers if they're up for it.
Consider it done. Anyway, let's get to the real reason we brought you in. I'm sure you were waiting for this announcement. Anything that you heard you liked, or do you think and do you think this is constructive, or is it a waste of time?
Waste of time. Lamest announcement I've heard, and I actually was mildly optimistic about the group. I think Condoleezza Rice is usually good at these types of commissions, and there were some people on there that I actually had a little bit of positive hope for. But what they suggested was nothing. I mean, they basically look. The core thing that the NCAA has to decide is: do you believe that what your basic foundation of the system is, which is we're not going to pay these people, and a scholarship is the same value as what we're getting from the player? You have to decide if you want to support that. And if the answer is yes, then to me, you've ended the conversation. And that's what they did. The cornerstone of what the entire report was basically, we're sticking with amateurism as the model, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work in football, but it really doesn't work in basketball. And so there's nothing they said that's helpful. I think actually what they did, if they go through with a lot of these changes, will hurt the sport in the long term, because the one-and-done thing is going to end. And some people like that, some people don't. I don't think the one-and-done is as bad as most people do. But it's going to end. But the question for the future of college basketball is, what's going to replace it? Because if we end and only like 10 or 12 players go to the pros out of high school, that'll be fine. College basketball will be fine. But if they create a system where 50 to 75 players join the minor leagues of the NBA instead of going to college, then I think big-time college basketball as we know it is over. And so the NCAA doesn't seem to grasp that, I don't think. And I thought this report, this report even brought up the notion of making freshmen ineligible.
that was antediluvian.
That's something from like the 50s and 60s. I think it was a big bunch of nothing.
Then why did we go through this ordeal?
Because the NCAA had to fit, like, these scandals that happened. And let's be clear, the reason these FBI scandals happen is because the NCAA has made illegal something that they have no business making illegal, which is players making money. But because they've done it, they had to act like something needed to be done. And the language used by this commission, it comes off as something from like 40 years ago. We have to clean up these bad actors. The bad actors they're talking about are people who had the audacity to say, hey, Brian Bowen, you know what? You should get some money from how much money you're going to make for the University of Louisville or South Carolina. I just think it's silly, especially because, Paul, there's one thing they could do that would make all this fine. To me, the system could be fixed with one tweak. Let the players own their own images, period. You don't have to pay them, because I don't think schools can pay them. Because if you do, you get Title IX issues. There's a lot of schools that can't afford it. It's a problem. But let the kids have their own, own their own identity and own their own likeness. And here's the thing, Paul, they already do it in other sports. They do it in swimming. They do it in tennis. There are sports where players can do that. They just don't do it in basketball and football, and everybody can guess why that is. So if they did that, then players could make money, the schools could make money, and then the players would have an incentive to stay in school long enough to get good enough to go to the NBA, because they'd still be making money from their endorsements. To me, it's a no-brainer, but of course the NCAA doesn't want to do it.
Great stuff, as always, from Senator Matt Jones of Kentucky. Matt, we will talk to you very soon. Do we have to go through your press secretary, or can we call you direct?
No, as of now, I will still take your calls directly. Just make sure to give me a few minutes' notice.
You got it. Matt's probably will be voting for cloture or something on the Senate floor. Matt, we will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Great stuff. Wow. And by the way, we were not joking about that article. He is deadly serious about running for the Senate, which I'm sure goes to prove something. 855-242-7285. Glad you are with us on this Wednesday afternoon. More to come.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. Whee! You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
And we welcome all of you back to the program. More phone calls, more guests later on, especially concerning tomorrow night's NFL draft. Jeff is in Missouri. Welcome to the program, Jeff.
Hey, thanks, man. This is for Matt in Gainesville, Georgia. I know he's bitter. He sounds very bitter. He needs counseling because Georgia lost to Alabama. But I'll tell you what he needs to do. He needs to move to Tuscaloosa. He needs to drink a couple beers and let Millie show him how to go all the way.
I'm going to pass that along to him. Hey, thank you for the call. Daniel in Mississippi, welcome to the program. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
We are great. Thank you.
I wanted to talk about Jalen Hurst being the starting quarterback again this year. I think he will be, and I think the other quarterback will come in at times, and they will when they got a good lead and stuff, and prepare him for the next couple of years. But I think Jalen will be the starter, though.
Let me ask you why you think that is. Why do you think Jalen will be the starter?
Because he's got the whole team, and he led the team to the
No. But I know what you're saying there, and I think that certainly would be a logical way of looking at it. But I think if you get inside that team right now, I'm not sure that team really looks at Jalen Hurts as its leader.
But Paul, what you got to look at too, Kirby Smart knew Jalen Hurst. They prepared the game against him and others that Kirby Smart coached, and then when you do that, there's no other. They know every move, every play you're gonna throw out at them. So you want to go to another quarterback to throw
but my point to you, Daniel, is this. I mean, if you look at the pressure, if you look at Jalen Hurts under pressure in the LSU game, in the Auburn game, obviously in the Clemson and championship game against Georgia, he did not perform very well. I know what the record is. He has enormous talent around him. We'll see that Thursday night in the NFL draft. But I was once in your camp. Yeah. I'm beginning to slip away from that thought process.
Yeah, I understand. He don't have the arm that he needs to.
Well, no, and my point is, if he doesn't have it now, when is he ever going to have it? That was supposed to be last offseason. Get better. He didn't get better. That was supposed to be at the end of last season. He didn't look any better. He actually looked worse in the spring game.
Nothing on this new guy right now. He played 3 quarters. And
listen. Let me ask you a question, Daniel. Do you think Nick Saban would have trusted the national championship with someone he didn't feel could do it?
He didn't have no choice. He was going to lose it anyway.
Okay, well, lose the game with who was in charge? Who was the quarterback?
I would have gambled just like him.
Okay, let me go back and regurgitate. Hold on, Daniel. Let me regurgitate one of the words you just said. He was going to lose the game.
He had no choice. He had to put somebody in there that didn't know.
Okay.
Didn't work the game plan.
Who was the quarterback that he was going to lose the game with?
Jalen Hurst.
Right.
Because
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
The other side coached him.
No.
And knew every move he made, every throw, every play.
And so does everyone else.
Well, yeah.
You know why? Daniel.
That's my question. Everybody else and every
Daniel, do you know why? Daniel,
he was knowing what he was going to be.
Do you know why it isn't difficult to defend Jalen Hurts?
The same thing they done with.
Do you have any idea why it's not difficult? Because you know what he's going to do.
Exactly.
Because he can't pass the ball down the field.
Yes, he can. He's been.
Well, Daniel, give me some. Give me.
Quarterbacks
in what?
College ranks.
When was the last time you saw him make a significant play down the field?
You win.
I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to make a point.
Okay, I understand. But I'm an LSU fan. I ain't an Alabama fan anyway.
So now I know why you want Jalen. Now you've answered my question. Now you know. Now we know why you want Jalen. I mean, you're arguing with me. I didn't realize you were making this. You placed this phone call on behalf of Ed Ogeron. Mm-hmm. By the way, Jalen Hurts on his worst day may be better than what O's doing down there with quarterbacks. Champ is up next. Champ, you there? Or you?
Hey, Paul.
How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. I've been listening to your show for a while, and you exercise, just self-control, and I was wondering. Do you take any supplements or anything, or does anything help you with your focus, anything like that, attentiveness?
Do I take supplements?
Yes, sir.
No.
Don't? Okay. Well, I was just thinking because everyone's talking about how old Nick Saban is getting, and he's got a lot of money, and he's able to support his need there to be able to be there for his team. So I really don't think the age is really a big factor, especially when you hear him talk about how he's always been part of a team.
No, but Champ, you're right about that. The question isn't Nick Saban's health. I think Nick Saban is an extraordinary health, and whether I don't think he looks a 1 iota difference at 66 than he did at 56. The question, though, is his age being used against him by his competitors. Now you have Jimbo Fisher out west. You've got Kirby. You've got these former assistants under Nick Saban who know his mindset, who know what gets to him. And Nick Saban, I've interviewed him about his age and about his plans, and the answer is always the same. The difference is, at some point, it will become a bigger issue. I'm not going to make it a big issue because I think it's absurd. But I covered as a rather young reporter a million years ago the end of Coach Bryant's tenure, and it got to him because he couldn't fight off the younger coaches and say, I'm going to be here. And Saban does not want the narrative out there to read and to sound anything other. I'm going to be here 5 or 10 more years. But at some point, is that realistic? That's the question.
Definitely.
By the way, if you have some supplements that will help me, I'll be more than happy to take them. No one is challenging Nick Saban's health. Nobody. The caller brought something up about an hour ago that Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher, others, and this is a fact, by the way, they are bringing up Saban's age. They're regurgitating that to recruits. They're saying, hey, do you want to go there and play for this guy? He's 67 years old. He's going to be 70, whatever. I mean, when you're 17 years old, that sounds like something prehistoric. The only 67-year-old people that a 17-year-old know are their grandparents' older friends. Not their younger friends, their older friends. We're up against a break. More to come right after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Coach in Tennessee. How are you, Coach?
Hey, Paul. Fine. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you very much.
Hey, just wanted to expand a little bit on Matt Jones's comments and Jeremy Pruitt's just real quickly, and I'll be brief. But I totally agree with Matt Jones's last comment that if the kids can control their likeness and give them the earning power. I do have a close friend of mine, a D1 athletic director, and he said if you polled the 347 D1 athletic directors, he said probably 90% would agree with that too, even down to letting that kid hire the agent before he comes to school, let him make the money on his likeness right down to the programs that they sell. It can be controlled, and it take a lot of the sleaziness out of the programs and take a lot of pressure off ADs that are ultimately responsible for the coaches they hire. So I think it's a great idea. Let them, they're not drafted, let them come on back to school. That would help keep programs, I think, interesting for the fans when you don't have the one and done, when you have the kids that stay maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 years and get their degree. I think that would be great for college athletics. And I agree with Matt. What are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts on the let them control their likeness?
I do agree with that, and that has been a big issue since the O'Bannon case, and I think it would. I don't know if it would solve all the problems, like Matt said, but at least it would give the student athlete. Well, that's a fake news phrase right there. A stake in the game, so to speak.
Correct. And on Jeremy's comments, I agree with you. I think Jeremy's going to be great for the University of Tennessee. I really do. I like a lot of the things he brings, the no nonsense, do that. Yes, he slipped up. He shouldn't have made that comment. Coach Saban actually made the comment against his fans a few years ago, too, when they were leaving early, if you remember, from games. And
he did.
One big difference. He had a couple national championships under his belt when he made those comments. And it's a little different situation when they were leaving early. I think it was a few years ago when he made those comments. But
he was upset with the students. They were leaving blowouts, and he made that known. But I really think if you study, not that anyone really wants to do this, Jeremy Pruitt's comments, I mean, it was at the end of a long run-on thought, and I'm still not convinced he meant it to be interpreted like everyone has done, but there was no escaping what he said. I mean, he was trying to praise the people that were there. Then he just asked a rhetorical question or whatever kind of question. Anyway, thanks for the call, Coach. Always a pleasure. Good to have you on board. Let's move along and talk to Samuel up next. Welcome to the program, Samuel.
Yes. I was listening at Paul, and he said that he wasn't quite sure that Jalen was going to start. But I disagree.
Well, why do you disagree?
Paul Saban is not no fool. He know that boy had led him to a 24 or 26-2 record. So, and he was also the SEC player.
And you know what,
freshman.
Samuel, that doesn't mean one thing when it comes to determining whether he'll start over Tua.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Well, okay.
Nick Saban is fair, and he knows who's the best quarterback is. Hell, that boy can't run like Jalen.
And the other one but can he pass?
Yeah, he can pass. He can pass. That's bullshit.
Thank you so much for the call. Mike is up next in North Carolina. Hello, Mike.
What's going on, Paul?
We are doing well. Thank you for the call.
I just want to say, I'm going to hit you a little classy Howard Stern. Hit him with the Finebaum.
I like it.
I had a question for you, man. Kind of a question and a statement. One, we're going to build a wall around Alabama with national championship trophies, it seems like these days. But other than that, I don't have no dog in that fight. I just want to get your comments, and I'll take them off the air. How do you think Dan Mullen's going to do down there in Gainesville?
Thank you very much. I think Dan's going to do great. I think it may take a year, but once he gets his players, especially his quarterback, in there, that program is going to lift off again. Coop is in Pensacola. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
What's up, Paul? Nice to talk to you again.
Thank you very much.
I think people should look at this quarterback competition at a recruiting standpoint. What do you think's easier, going into a 5-star wide receiver recruit's room and telling him that Jalen Hurst is going to be throwing him the ball, or Tua? I feel like
Coop. I think you nailed it. I think Jalen Hurts on one level is a negative if you're trying to recruit a wide receiver, and just wait till Calvin Ridley starts talking about his experiences at Alabama when he's no longer encumbered by the fact that he was on that team. He would be. I think that's a very significant point you've just made there.
Well, Paul, not just wide receivers either, but think about the 5-star running backs. Saban owes it to these guys. I mean, in the Auburn game, Jalen outrushed all of Alabama's running backs combined. How can Saban go into a 5-star running back home and tell him that, hey, our quarterback, who is a 5-star dual threat or 4-star dual threat quarterback, I don't even think he's really that great of a runner, is going to have more carries than you in a game? I mean, how can you do that?
You know what, Coop, thanks for the call. We're up against a break. I don't think this is going to drag on as long as people say it will, and I think there's too much going on here that may not be positive. But anyway, that's Nick Saban's decision. We are up against a break. We're going to Dallas in a moment. Laura Rutledge will join us coming up in mere moments.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And welcome back. The second half of the program is live, and of course everyone knows by now tomorrow night the NFL draft. It is in Dallas. It's been in Chicago and Philadelphia, usually or used to be in New York. Now it's a traveling road show, and that's exactly where we are heading right now, to Dallas or somewhere. I don't know. Looks like we're heading to somebody at a Holiday Inn Express. What in the world and where in the world is Laura Rutledge?
Yeah, Paul, I'm here in Dallas, obviously, but I'm currently just preparing for the draft in this nice spa room here that they have for me to talk to you. And truly it makes sense because you stress me out so much that I need to be in a spa room so I can be relaxed. I'm here on a massage bed. I actually have some nice oils here. I don't know how you feel about massages, but if you decide to come join us for the draft, you know, you can definitely come here and get a massage. When I tell you that they have everything for these draftees and for these guys who are potentially going to be picked very early in the draft, I'm being very serious. It has been a whole nice parade of haircuts, of, you know, getting shaved, getting ready to go, manicures, pedicures, all that stuff. And I've finally gotten my chance to truly sit back, relax, and talk to you now here.
I know we're supposed to make this about the draft, but I know that you've been to spas before. So when you go to one of these 5-star spas, what do you do there all day?
Yeah, I actually haven't been to that many spas, but when I lived in Shanghai, it was a big thing over there. But it's actually funny. I got a massage there, and I didn't know what I signed up for, Paul. So I signed up for a very intense one. And at one point, there were 2 people stomping on my back. And at that point, I decided, no more massages for me. I'm done. It was way too painful. I don't think that's going to happen here, though. I think we're a little more relaxed here, just making sure that everyone's at their best to hit the red carpet tomorrow.
Yeah, Laura used to be 5'1", now she's 5'10", thanks to that stomping she got in China. Well, I know all the spa stories, so we'll save them for the live Facebook Live session after the show. But talk a little bit about we just saw you with Minka. Tell us about some of the other players you've been running into, and what is their state of mind the day before?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just ready to get to the draft. I mean, these guys have been here now for a couple of days. I was just talking to Darius Geis, and while he's so excited, he's like, hey, I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to get to rookie camp. I'm ready to get going here. And I think for some of these players, it's been a whirlwind of epic proportions for them. So to actually get a chance to go through the whole process and to be doing all these things that they're doing today and talking to so many different people, so many different networks, including us, of course, it's just time now to make it happen. And I've really been interested to talk to them a little bit more. Some of the guys that, you know, in the SEC we don't get to talk to as much. Josh Rosen was very interesting today. I think he's a guy that's dealing with so much outside noise, a lot of people talking about him, and yet he's very focused on just whatever's going to happen, wherever he's going to get picked. And this is really a fascinating draft from that standpoint. There's so many different stories, so many different things going on, so many different ways that these teams could go. So it's just all going to come down to tomorrow night specifically, and even beyond that as well. But yeah, I think my favorite thing of the day was hearing from Minka, as you guys just heard, that when Nick Saban calls him, it's always no caller ID. That's what it comes up as. And sometimes he ignores Nick Saban's phone calls. Who does that? If Nick Saban calls you, you're going to answer the phone, right?
Well, Laura, I know one thing. If I get a call that says no caller ID, there's only 2 people I know that call me. One is actually Saban, because you have to answer the phone. But one time, and I thought Saban was calling me about something, so I picked up the phone. I said yes, and I was pretty uptight. And it was the other person I know that has no caller ID, and that was Jim from Tuscaloosa.
Oh, that's right. You know, here's the thing.
And he spent
whenever
the next 20
I get
minutes,
a no caller ID, it's definitely not Saban.
And Jim spent the next 20
definitely Jim.
Jim spent the next 20 minutes using easily the most foul language I've ever heard in my entire life. I mean, blankety blank. I can't even come close to repeating them on a show like this. And I said, I think I would have been better being chewed out by Nick Saban, which I have been before. But will you answer the phone if you don't know who it is?
Yeah, well, see, I would probably not answer the phone if I didn't know who it was. But the thing is, Minka admitted that he knows that when no caller ID shows up on his phone, that's obviously Nick Saban. And he's called him repeatedly times before, and Minka said, I'm just not going to answer it. Now, they have a very great relationship, don't worry. But Saban likes to be answered when he is calling.
Now, he will probably be there tomorrow night. I think he's been to pretty much every other draft. I don't know if
he will be.
The coaches, and I realize we're jumping ahead, but it's almost a convention of sorts. You have the great players, you have agents all over the place, and now the coaches start showing up. What can you tell us? What should we expect to see tomorrow night?
Yeah, there will be a lot of coaches here. You mentioned Nick Saban. He'll be here. Urban Meyer will also be here. James Franklin. I mean, the list goes on and on of these prominent college coaches. And it's so important for them from a recruiting standpoint, because what is their pitch to all these kids? It's, hey, if you come and play here, wherever here may be, you're going to have a chance to be a pick in the NFL draft. And they want to be on that red carpet. They want to be talking about their kids that they recruited from who knows how young, depending on some of them, and got them to go to school and develop them, and especially those players that weren't highly recruited but were given a chance and then became NFL prospects while they were in college. Those are the guys that they really use as advertisement for their programs. So we will see a lot of the biggest names in college football. And Paul, it's fascinating because there aren't that many times where college football and the NFL truly collides. This is one of them. So you see all these college coaches, all these future NFL players who are, still in between college and the NFL, and then some NFL people as well as some other college people. It is a meeting of the minds, a meeting of these two worlds that have a lot in common, but also have a lot of differences.
And I want to juxtapose that with something that we talked about a lot during basketball season. You were literally in Kentucky at Rupp Arena almost every Tuesday night on Big Tuesday, and that is John Calipari's calling card, and it's been one of the keys, as you know, Laura. How do the Nick Sabans, the Dabo Sweeneys, you mentioned Urban Meyer, now Kirby Smart, use tomorrow night in addition to playing for a championship as a recruiting tool?
Well, I think it's life-changing money, and that's what you see from so many of these players. What are they going to get if they get an opportunity? If you are drafted your junior year, if you're somebody who maybe does wait around your senior year, you may be able to change your entire family's life. Some of these guys have already said, I'm going to buy my mom a house. I'm going to help out my family. I'm going to do whatever I can with this money that I'm going to make. And so I think that's another huge part of it. When you're talking about recruiting, obviously money's involved from that standpoint, from the potential to play pro and everything that comes along with that. You're also talking to the parents. What can I offer you from a standpoint of your son's future that will eventually help you out? And I think that's a huge selling point for a lot of these coaches that will be in play and always is in play. Yeah, you want to win championships, but ultimately, how can you make this game of football that so many people love so dearly, how can you make that into a long-term career? There are very few guys that are truly able to do that. So that's where you see, there's a direct correlation. The teams that recruit the best are the ones with the most NFL picks, and obviously that comes into developing talent, but it also comes into seeing those NFL guys have success and then being able to turn it right back around and fill those voids with everybody else who's coming in.
Laura, thank you so much. Oh, by the way, I just got a text from the lady at the front where you are. She said your I think your facial and your pedigree are coming up next. Pedicure.
Did you just say pedigree or pedicure?
I'm thinking when I think of you, I think of pedigree. Let me just tell you,
this is. Well, thank you. I have, Paul. I'm going to send this to you. It's Red Flower Aromatherapeutic Body Oil. You'll get some of this in your mailbox. I may send some to Jim, too. It might just calm everybody down,
Laura Rutledge, live from wherever in Texas, the spa. Laura, thanks so much. Appreciate it, and hope you enjoy your pedigree and your pedicure. We are going to take a short break. Back with much, much more.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program, 855-242-7285. That is the number here. Let's grab some more phone calls. And Wilder is in Tennessee. Wilder, good afternoon.
Hello, Paul. Hello?
Hi, Wilder.
Hey, I want to talk about Tennessee's football team this year. The expectations of Tennessee's football season.
Johnny is up next in Florida. Johnny, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing today?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say something, but then I want to say something important, really, too.
Sure.
I appreciate when you bring Laura Rutledge on the show because it adds glamour and professionalism, which your show is.
Thank you very much. We agree.
Paul, I wanted to say something about spring games that all the major colleges go through. I think that if the SEC, and I don't know if it has to go higher than this, but if they would take a format like Florida's high school teams do, Florida's high school has a certain amount of days that they can practice, and then after that, they play a real game with a real opponent from a different team, not necessarily in their conference, but out of it, but near where you live. I think, and believe me, Paul, they make so much money out of that game. And I think if the SEC would look at having a spring game format like Florida High School does, I think you would see much more enthusiasm, a very, very profitable situation, because really in spring training, those kids are hitting each other pretty hard in spring training. And I don't think that playing a game would be that much difference. I think you would get such a better readout on your team as compared to where they are and where you want to go with them. And I just think it would be overall great for the SEC, and I don't know if this has to come from higher or not. I don't know. But that's my thought on it.
Well, I really think it's interesting. I don't think they'll ever go for it, but because it is opening up a window that I'm not sure anybody really wants. But I think it would be, there would be some benefit from it. Thanks for the call. I do appreciate it. Nick is next. Nick, good afternoon.
Amnesty, AMNESTY, Paul.
Got you, bud.
That's what I need from listening to some of these callers today, Paul. How do you deal with this? I really want to know. When you go home at night, what do you do?
I always try as much as I can to, when I leave here, to leave it here. And it's not possible sometimes because I'm one that always looks at what we did wrong versus what we did right. But
may I give you a suggestion on what to do?
It probably involves sour mash whiskey, doesn't it?
No, sir.
Okay.
It involves popping you a goody powder and drinking you a Bud Light.
Yeah, and I'm not a connoisseur in alcohol, but I don't think a Bud Light's enough.
I agree, Paul, but I got one other thing to say, if you'll give me a minute.
Go right ahead.
All right, with Tua's brother, Talia, coming in there, and I'm going to agree with Legend. I like Legend's call earlier today that the battle for the quarterback position in this year between Hurts and Tua ain't with Hurts and Tua. It's with Matt Jones and Hurts as far as the number 2 quarterback. What do you think about that, Paul?
Well, yeah, listen, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of Alabama fans are doing their best to sell out Jalen Hurts. I think he has some serious issues ahead, but I think that's an overstatement right there. Just an opinion here. Let's continue more with Jimmy in Chicago. What do you say, Jimmy?
Hey, Paul. Yeah, that is going overboard just a little bit, although I think Mac Jones, with his natural talent, is probably better suited for that type of offense.
You know what I heard about him today, though, Jimmy, and I'm not agreeing with Nick, because that's a fashionable thing to say. But the thing I heard about Mac Jones that I like is that he is someone described him to me as somewhat of a Baker Mayfield gunslinger, which sounds scary to some people, but as a quarterback, it can be a really good attribute.
Yeah, and I've also heard, and if he makes mistakes in practice, he has a McEnroe type of temper as far as getting angry with himself, but he's able to toss it aside after a mistake and just, resume, what his mission is there. But this guy that called in, I think earlier in the hour or latter part of the last hour, tried to say that Tua can't run. I don't know if he watched the national championship game, but what was possibly, looking back on it, maybe the biggest play of the game that put Alabama in a position to get back in it was on that 3rd and 8 when he escaped what looked like a certain sack with 3 Georgia defenders, including Roquan Smith. He got out of it on the 3rd and 8 and scrambled, made the first down, and then like 3 plays later, he throws the touchdown pass to Ruggs to make it 13-7. And here's the run that everybody forgets about. Just over a minute left in regulation. It was like 3rd and 3, and he ran over Sanders, who had hit him about 2 yards short of the first down. He went right through him and made it. And what was so significant about that was it allowed Alabama to either win the game or go into overtime on the last play of the game, preventing Georgia from being able to get the ball back. In the case in which they did, they missed the field goal. I mean, those were 2 just national championship play runs. And as far as a great point that you had with the caller about an hour or so ago, talking about the fact that, hey, 4 and 5 star wide receivers aren't coming to Alabama with the idea of playing with somebody that can't get them the ball. And I think in that second half, I think Tua, he completed passes to like 7 different receivers. I mean, that's impressive. And then you consider the fact that, after 28 starts at the elite level of college football, that in a spring game, which you're a very good defense, but they're playing vanilla coverages, you still can't go through progressions after your primary receiver is covered. I mean, that's a really an alarming, thought there. And again, it's obvious, Jalen, he's got tremendous confidence issues, and it's just, you're right. I mean, it's just one of those situations after 28 starts. That's a hard thing. The one thing
I heard this earlier today, Jimmy, and I've used it before, but it's no longer an operational comment. It doesn't matter that Jalen was the 2016 Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC, and it doesn't matter what his record is. All you can do is look at what he has done in the recent trend. The recent trend is bad. And Saturday really was his worst moment. And I know that Booger was on here earlier and said you're not going to judge somebody on a spring game. But what else does Nick Saban and this new offensive staff, and remember, he's got a quarterback coach too. In the past, he's had a coordinator who also served as the quarterback coach. What else are they supposed to do? What else are they supposed to think when they saw what they saw Saturday?
Well, yeah, and at the start of the 2016 season, even when Barnett was given the start, there was no question among the team and all the observers who'd watched the scrimmage that Jalen was far and away their best quarterback. He's not the best quarterback on this team now.
No.
I mean, it's just a situation that you have to.
I hope it doesn't get beyond that, because it seems like I'm starting to hear things, Jimmy, that I don't like. I don't know where this is going. I don't like where it's going, but it's going there nevertheless. We appreciate your call very, very much. Lance is up next in Tennessee. Lance, good afternoon to you.
Doing great. Hey, Paul, you've seen the spring games in the SEC, so how do you feel about Florida's record this year? Too early for you?
I think Florida is making a lot of progress. I still think this year could be bumpy at times, but not after this year.
I appreciate you saying that, 'cause I agree with you. I mean, a lot of the experts would say 8-4 is a record, 9-3. I mean, I wouldn't argue 9-3, but 8-4 is a little low for me. So, are you hearing anything behind the scenes about Emory Jones? I heard you talk about Justin Fields yesterday. Is anybody saying anything to you about Emory Jones?
Not much.
Not much, but I've heard some good things. I got a few buddies on SEC country. They're saying he's doing everything he can, man. He's seeing real good progress. I mean, I know people.
So are you telling me, Lance, you've got friends in the media?
Yeah, man. You ain't seen my show, Paul? Check me out on YouTube, man. I had Rich and Phyllis on my show the other night.
Hey, hold on a second, Lance. You have your own YouTube show?
Yeah, man, you inspired me, Paul. I can't say what I want to on this show, so I figured I'd start my own.
By the way, Lance, we can't say what we want to either, but that's beside the point.
Oh, shot me down. Big man, you still got it, don't you, Paul? You still got it.
Lance, if I had some free time tonight, which I'm planning on having, how would I find the Lance show on YouTube?
Oh, man, all you got to do is subscribe to my Lance. Just type in Lance and Jasper on YouTube. You'll find me. I mean, when you think, there's only one, though. But tell me about the Gator, man. I want to stay straight. I don't want to come up. I just want to tell you that.
No, Lance, I'm the host here. Let me ask the questions, okay?
Okay, all right.
For those of us who somehow don't make it to your YouTube channel tonight, what's the show? Give us the rundown of the show. How does it work?
It's a swamp chat, man. We just talk about anything college football. You know, I mainly talk Gators. I have guests come on. We talk Gators, state of the program, where they think it's going. We can talk anything. It don't matter to me. Anybody wants to be a part of it, hit me up.
Lance, let's make believe for a second that. And how often do you do the show?
Once a week, twice a week. Just put on a guest.
Okay, Lance, let's make believe for a second that we're live on your YouTube show, okay?
Lance and Jasper broadcasting live. Radio.
I'm going to be the voice. I'm going to say, it's now time for Lance. Boy, I think I broke my voice doing that. It's now time. I was trying to go East Tennessee on you. It's been a long time. And now it's time for Lance from Jasper. Lance, it's all yours.
Oh, man. Radio Rage at his best, man. But, I don't do a lot of talking, believe it or not. I like to get the other people's opinion in there. Sometimes I go Radio Rage. Like I had a guy tell me the other day, it would take a miracle for Jacob Copeland to be ready to play day one. Jacob Copeland, are you talking about the same kid that rode to the spring game with Nick Saban? I mean, a miracle worker? This kid was a miracle when he was born, Paul. Jacob Copeland can't play day one? Come on, man. People are sleeping on this coaching staff. I mean, we finally upgraded. Billy Gonzalez, Dan Owen. I mean, think about this. They say Dan Mullen's never started a true freshman at quarterback. Well, he's never had a top 15 recruiting class. He's never had a talent like Emory Jones. And people say Tim Tebow. He wasn't a head coach. He don't make that decision. And back then, you had a senior quarterback, and that used to mean something in college football, Paul. I'm telling you, man, I'm fired up about the staff, man, and what we can do.
Hey, Lance, by the way, I just got a call from somebody at ESPN. They want to know if you're available in the morning.
Hey, man, people at ESPN fear me. Your boy Matt Jones, fear me. I mean, man, you don't give me no credit, man. I mean, when it comes to quarterbacks, nobody knows it better than Lance and Jasper, baby. I gave you Will Greer last year at SEC Media Days. Marcus Spears.
Lance, where are you? Lance, hold on. Hey, Lance, hold on a second, man. Lance, slow down.
Give me some love, baby.
Lance, slow down.
Y'all talking about Alabama quarterback controversy. That ain't no controversy. I mean, as good as the coach as Nick Saban is, if he goes back to Jalen Hurts, he'll lose that damn team. Come on, Alabama, wake up.
So Lance, every time you make a point, do you say, now come on in Florida, come on Alabama? Is that your signature line?
Well, it's better than another word I like to use.
Well, yeah, I've seen your Twitter feed. Leave the F words.
Don't get me started, Paul.
Leave the F words to your Twitter feed. Okay, this still is a family show. Andre, if you had your own show, I would watch every night. Good afternoon, my man.
Coach Paul Finebaum. How you doing, Coach?
Doing great. I'm just not sure I'm going to ever get over that last call.
I know it. I listen to this guy babble on all the time. Coach, how long do you give Coach Joe and the AD Joe Lever before they run them both out of town?
So it sounds like you're not very confident, right?
Would you be confident in a man that gave Coach Ed Orgeron a $12 million buyout? What buffoon would do that?
I didn't realize
what man
that.
with good sense would give this man a $12 million buyout? That's the same buyout.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, Andre. You're a smart guy. You put a buyout on a coach for one reason, and you know what that reason is, don't you?
Yeah, I know that reason is, but Coach, $12 million?
You put the buyout on there to prevent him from leaving.
Who gonna want the man?
You took the words out of my mouth.
Who's going to want the man? He should have fired Les Miles 5 years ago. We could have had Lincoln O'Reilly. We could have had Herman. Some of these up-and-coming young bucks. But we stuck with Coach O. Hey, look, Coach, where's our friend Archie at from Ocean Springs? I haven't heard from him lately.
He's given up.
You
hey, listen,
out, Coach.
Andre, somehow we missed the breaks. We appreciate the call, as always. What a show it's been. Not over yet. 90 minutes to go, and we're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back to the program. A lot going on here. Let's get some reaction from the great Midwest. Jeff is in Columbus, O.
What's going on, Paul?
Jeff, just talking to a lot of future stars here.
I mean, people talk about Saban and Walsh's coaching tree. I mean, your radio host tree is going off the charts. You got Legend and now Lance propping up. Man, you should be proud of yourself, Paul, for training all these pros out there, my man.
We are proud of it. The Finebaum tree rivals Belichick, Saban. It rivals the Miami of Ohio coaching tree. It rivals the best.
The
Lombardi,
host,
Walsh.
Paul Finebaum. Hey, man, I got a little glimpse of Hazy's and Kubiak power rating, and I'm just proud to be the top-ranked Yankee on there, my man.
You are looking good, my man.
Yeah, I mean, the top-ranked Yankee, I can't complain too much. I got to admit that. Hey, and speaking of callers, I had to laugh. I thought Darriel yesterday might have had his all-time best call, and you kept trying to compliment him, and old Darriel had no part of. He kept cutting you off, wouldn't argue with you when you were trying to compliment him. I thought that was funny.
That's Darriel.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of morons, this Matt from Gainesville, talk about a guy that has spit the bit twice in a little phoner feud. I mean, Larry hammered that guy after 12 Bud Lights and only said a couple words. And Matt didn't even, he just stuttered and stomped around.
He's 0-2 right now in phoner feuds.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to go to the D League or something when it comes to fight.
But he has, and no one has taken a beating in a phoner feud like the one you administered.
No. I mean, when the all-time legend Jim from Tuscaloosa tries to jump you in the parking lot and you kick him to the curb for 3 months, that's not bad. That may have got me the #1 Yankee ranking just in that alone, I think.
Yeah, I mean that was sad to watch. I mean, it was it was Tyson at the end of his career. It was Ali at the end of his career. It was Willie Mays playing for the Mets. I mean, it was every bad, Namath with L.A. I mean, it was every bad comparison you can come up with.
Right. Hey, and
Mike Francesa coming back to radio.
Right. Hey, how hilarious is this Knoxville honeymoon has ended after we can't even get to the spring game with old Pruitt down there? I mean, I tell you who nailed it on the head was Cole Kubiak yesterday, and you need to have him on more often because that guy's a straight shooter. He called it just like I see it. These Tennessee fans, they all thought they were big time, rallying around who the coach, the AD was going to hire and making fools of themselves, thinking they're, calling all their shots. Well, you know what? They deserve, like Kubiak said yesterday, they deserve to be called out. Pruitt was probably thinking these guys were going to rally around and everything the way they acted in the off season, and then I don't blame Pruitt for calling them out, to be honest with you. And they deserved it because most of them, they talk all big games or delusional. Is probably the most delusional fan base in all of college football. And then when it comes time to have a new regime come in and rally around them, he didn't like what he saw. He was expecting more, I think, out of the fans down there myself. And I called you about a month ago, Paul, and talked to you about this Tua Hurts thing. I tell you what, the more and more, it is getting so similar to this J.T. Barrett, Cardale Jones situation.
No, that. By the way, that was sapient that you said that.
Yes, and I'm telling you where it's going. And Saban, this is like I told you. If the smartest move he could make would be to call Urban and ask him what the biggest mistake he made trying to handle that, because it looks like the fan base is already split on this.
Oh no! By the way, he'll see Urban tomorrow night in Dallas. The fan base is more than split. The fan base has already made up its mind.
And you know where the next thing goes. And I know I can tell what you're already hearing about, and you don't want to come out and say it but it's headed to the locker room if it's not there already. Because Hurts obviously is one heck of a leader, just like Barrett. Every guy on the team, and Urban knew that. So I think he was so loyal to Barrett to a fault because of the leadership in the locker room, and he was afraid to lose the locker room. And I got to believe that's part of this whole decision. He probably knows Tua is the better player, the better athlete, the better thrower, but can he control the locker room like I think sounds like Hurts? I don't know it from Adam, but I'm guessing that's the way it is.
It's a good point. Well done. Hey, thank you very much, Jeff. Good to hear from you. I-Man, up next.
Well, good afternoon, Paul Finebaum. You are now not on my show. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard, all these people trying to get their own show. You know what the difference between you and these other Winderlickers out there? I didn't mean to say you and the other Winderlickers, meaning you were a Winderlicker. I mean you and the Winderlickers. You don't have to talk. When you do your show, you just kind of sit back and you just take and you just let it settle, and then when you see something, you speak. These other people got to talk all the way through because they have no guest. They don't really have anything to talk about, but their aspiration to be a talk show host is just driven through the roof, and I don't understand that. Why would somebody want to do that?
Well, it's the new world we live in, where anyone can have a reputation or a voice by speaking, whether it's social media, by doing Periscope, by doing YouTube. I mean, everyone can be heard. Now, the question I have is, everyone can be heard, but who out there is actually listening?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was involved in professional music 40 years, and I have never once bothered to put a single thing on YouTube because it's not that important to me. And I mean, just in the music thing alone, what is there? Probably 10 billion tunes out there to listen to.
Oh yeah. And recording is probably the word. Yeah,
somebody stumbling across.
Exactly.
And the same thing with the radio shows. I guess if you got 3 people liking it, I guess that's kind of cool. I mean,
nowadays everyone has their own internet radio show. Everyone has their own YouTube channel. And by the way, about 1 in a million of these actually pan out, and the person makes a lot of money and is famous for 15 minutes.
Right, for 15 minutes. 15 whole minutes. Can you imagine? That's 60 seconds times 15 minutes. That is a real long time in some of these poor. That's wheel time. That's wheel time. 15 minutes, not a minute here and a minute there. We're talking about one solid block of 15 minutes. And Jim used to tell me all the time, me and you ought to get a show. We blow Finebaum off the air, and I think, well, who would listen to us? And
well, Jim actually believes he could, but every time I've offered Jim a chance to be on the show, he's turned it down because we all know he can't do it.
Well, and you're hearing it straight from me, from Amen, the most loyal caller listener that you've had for 20 years.
True.
When I'm telling Jim, what would we talk about? Are we interesting? I mean, would anybody tune in? 20 hours a week doesn't sound like a long week. But when you're sitting there live and you're having to do that 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's pretty intense. And then you got to find somebody to sponsor the thing.
That is true. I hate to run. We are way late here on this segment. More to come, another hour and change to go on a Wednesday afternoon. Stick around.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Let's go to Darriel next. Darriel, welcome to our program, and good afternoon.
Wasn't it Lance who stated, I think, last year that Franks was going to be a great quarterback?
He sure did. Lance always had, but by the way, you heard what he said. He has a couple of sources at SEC country.
Is that right?
So do we.
I know. I also heard him say that he's had some great quarterback. He knows great quarterback or whatever. I remember him making that comment about Frank. We see how that turned out. You know what? Well, Lance is worried. Lance is worried big time. Lance knows that he's not even the second best team now in the SEC. And he knows that the gap between his team and the team in Athens is getting wider and wider and wider by the second. Lance knows that. Okay, he's worried. Paul, I will say this, though. I like Lance. Lance ain't as bad as that wannabe you got out there in Ohio, Columbus. I mean, that guy is I think he calls in just to hear himself talk. But they don't have a radio, they don't have a show out there he can call. I mean, he was calling him rag on the SEC. I mean, good Lord. When is the last time Ohio State done anything? And they wouldn't have done anything if Urban Meyer, who was in the SEC, went out there. But when's the last time they played for a national title game? How many years has it been?
Well, they won the championship in 14.
Okay.
They missed in 15 by losing the next to the last game at home, so they missed by about one position. In 16, they were in the playoffs. Last year, they came in 5th. So, I mean, they've been pretty consistent.
I think last year they got credit for what, beating USC or something like that? And they beat USC last year, Southern Cal?
I can't remember who did
They
Ohio
beat
State.
somebody, and they gave them a lot of credit for it during the playoffs. They were talking about it. But I would like to see that team come into this conference, and let's see how good they would do. They would be a 3-loss team every year.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, in 2015, I think Ohio State would have easily been the second best team in the SEC, and they would have had they played Alabama. I think Alabama would have won. I thought Alabama was really good in 2015, but not by much.
Yeah, didn't they play? They were like heavy favorites against Florida in the national championship game. Is that right?
Well, let me go back to 2015. I frankly thought Ohio State had the best team in the country in 2015.
Well, I don't think they got the best team in the country now, and I think the Big Ten is starting to slip a little bit. And you got schools that are...
Darryl, I don't mean to contradict everything you say, but what do you base the Big Ten is starting to slip a little bit? I mean, Penn State was really good last year. They lose a lot.
How many teams did they have in the Final Four?
Well, they didn't. I mean, we already established they didn't have any. They missed by one position.
I mean, ain't that the goal?
Well, in talking about the best conference, that's one way to examine it, but it may not be the only way.
At least the conference ain't as bad as that. Who came up with that list is what I want to know. How in the hell do you put Larry from Shelby in that?
Why don't you ask Mark? Why don't you ask Mark Kubiak? Since I don't do that.
Why don't I ask Mark Kubiak? Because
Kubiak, what about it?
Hey Kubiak, I got a question for you.
What's up?
Name me 5 great Auburn running backs and 5 great Alabama running backs right now on the spot.
What's that have to do running backs? What's that have to do? By the way, I don't want to waste time.
Cadillac Williams,
By the way,
Darryl,
nobody is interested in that. Why would you ask that question?
Because he's a producer for your show. He should know it. He should be able to spit them out like it
No,
ain't nothing.
you're challenging him on the caller.
You can take the reason I say it is
Georgia, Darryl, name 5 great Georgia running backs. That's your team. Go. You got 20 seconds.
Name 5 great Georgia running backs. Garrison Hurst, Herschel Walker.
Not so easy. Todd Gurley. How can you forget Todd Gurley? Come on, Darryl. Be better than that. Go to break, Paul.
We're up against a break. Thanks, Darryl, for making us all laugh a little harder.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
It was BYOG, bring your own guts. This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
They were having this tete-a-tete with Darryl when we went to the break, and a lot of people on social media wrote Darryl off, and I like Darryl a lot. I think Darryl has been I've gotten to know Darryl. In fact, I met Darryl and I had lunch a couple of years ago when I was on my book tour, and he's a fascinating guy. Yeah, he's a Georgia fan that wears it on his sleeve, but most fans do. Darryl is back, and Darryl, I want to ask you this. I'd like you to talk to Kubiak and Randy. I don't want this. Can you do this? I want you to talk substance here about your role on the show and where you found their list to be objectionable. I don't really want this. Can you, Final Jeopardy, Final Jeopardy stuff.
You know I know, okay? I mean, Tammy, really? You've got to be kidding me. Where's the quality at?
Oh, guys, are you back?
So girl screaming about nothing, and he doesn't even understand the game. Phyllis, I give Phyllis some credit being over there. Phyllis might have got it to ESPN or whatever. But, I mean, come on, let's not forget it. Phyllis is the one that said Kanye West played for Alabama, okay? I remember that very well. Phyllis goes way overboard with Alabama. Big time bad. I mean, not good at all. Especially with the guy killed the dog and she was trying to defend him. I mean, come on, man. But Larry from Shelby, what does he bring to the show? It's the same old every time.
I
There's no
will.
quality there. He doesn't talk football. He talks
I will
about
agree that
drills
Larry brings the
and
same
playing
thing.
golf.
I will. I'll agree that Larry brings the same thing every time, but it can be entertaining. As far as Tammy's concerned, you give the people what they want.
What is not entertaining about Tammy? It's great.
Right. That makes it different, Dan. Okay, now I
You give the
understand.
people what they want. And Phyllis, who doesn't want to hear Phyllis? And I was new to the show 4 years ago. I came in, and one of Phyllis's first calls went viral, where every show on ESPN played some snippet of it. I mean, she had old other radio host Colin Cowherd getting after it.
That's impactful.
That's impactful. So that's what they bring. That's why they're in that top 5 of the list.
Okay, it's hard for me to really to understand that someone is really that big of a sports fan when you tell them to name 5 players on their team and they can't name them. They look at you with like a look, or you let me like they're lost. Like Charles from Reeltown couldn't do. I asked him to name 5 great Auburn running backs. Always had a ton of great running backs. He couldn't name 5, and I gave him Bo Jackson right out the gate. I mean, that to me, if you're a great fan and you're really into your program that much, you ain't got to know all 22 starters, but you should be able to know some of the starters. I would think.
Absolutely.
You should know a little bit of the history of the program outside of Count Lorenz and Bear Bryant. I think it's a little bit more to Alabama than that. I mean, I can name you 5 great Alabama running backs, and they're not even my school.
But we're talking about, Darriel, the main thing we're talking about is bringing something to the table from a caller's standpoint.
See, Darriel, you have been the Georgia representative on this show for a very long time, even before we were on the SEC Network.
There's callers in that list, okay? What about the 2? I mean, when does Andy from Ohio call in? Once in a blue moon?
But again, when he calls in, it's great.
Yeah.
It's something that people want to hear. It gets reaction.
You never heard Jim from Crestwood, okay? He's still on that list. Even though he hasn't called in years. Kevin from the Kevinator, he should be on that list. He is very entertaining.
But no, Darriel, we're talking about the list now. We're not talking about a Hall of Fame list.
Well, he's saying that you can be on it if you call in once a year, which is like about.
Well, listen, to me, to be on that list, or these are people that make an impact. You have to call the show. You can't.
How do you know? Let me ask you this: when you say they make an impact, how do you know they make an impact? What do you base it out of? What data? Just what you think, or what? What was
the question again, Darriel?
Okay, how do you?
I'm waiting for the French interpreter.
To know who makes the impact? That's what I want to know.
Well, I feel like I know it because I'm sitting here taking the phone call, and I know what calls resonate and move the show. Your calls have done that. This guy in Georgia, as goofy as he is,
I don't put Matt on the list. I don't even want to be on it. I ain't calling for me. My day was I was etched. Okay, but the greatest thing that ever happened to me on this show was when Brent Musburger mentioned me. I don't need nothing else. That's it. That right there was enough for me right there. That did it because I know how great Brent Musburger was. Okay, and I mean to be able to get Brent Musburger's attention was that I don't need nothing else. And it can be all down here from here, and that's fine with me. But I think Matt should be on the list. I find him somewhat entertaining, even though he debates you and calls you out on the Alabama stuff.
No, listen, that doesn't bother me, Darriel. You know that.
But I just don't understand. I mean, but now I understand. Now it's based off entertainment. It's not based off.
No, I mean, it's based on a lot of things. I mean, a good caller to a show.
Wouldn't you put Jim Tuscaloosa number 1 then?
I don't have Jim. Jim is not on my list right now.
Why is Jim not on the list?
Because you have to talk about something other than how much you hate the show. That is not compelling. I mean, I have treated Jim with kid gloves for a long time. I've tried to rehabilitate Jim. I've tried to bring him out of this long funk that he's been in. But if you can't call the show and react, the only call that Jim has made to this show, I think, all year that was about something other than himself, someone else's call, how bad the show is, how the show used to be better. The only time was when he called in after J.K. Scott and reacted to that. That was a great call, but that's the only good call Jim's had all year.
Jerome should be on that list.
Jerome should be on that. I totally agree with you.
I mean, absolutely. And I would probably, you're going to put, who you got on there? You're going to put like Andy from Ohio on there. You got to put I-Man on there. I mean, he is.
Well, first of all, Andy from Ohio shouldn't be on the list. I mean, he is a yesterday caller, not a today caller.
What you need to do is get the pro back into your producers, but now they're just deucers. You know what I mean? I mean, they could learn a lot from Pat Smith. See you, Paul.
Well.
That was actually a pretty good line, and I got
Darryl, you may be working in the top 10 with that line.
I couldn't.
still
I mean,
out, but
listen,
pretty good.
I have to tell you guys, my hearing sometimes with Darryl, I missed what he said. He said that they need to put the pro back in producers. Is that right?
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then
they're
he
not
complimented.
producers.
And then he complimented
producers.
Pat Smith. I don't think either one of you guys know Pat, but he used to be. He started the show as we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Man, I don't know. That was pretty crazy.
What you need to do is get the pro back into your producers, because now they're just deucers. You know what I mean?
They're deucers. That was funny. That was funny. What about Larry, who's been on all the lists so far?
Well, my, I don't know nothing about my football. Man, I watch recruiting. I may not spout off all the names, but I know my team. I know my football. He is a moron. He is a falsehood liar. I know my team. I love my team. I watch recruiting every year. Keep up with my team. Don't he come on here and talk that trash with me. I slapped the taste out of his mouth. I love my team, and I love it to the heart, brother. So don't you come on here, Dale, and talking your smack like you know more than everybody else. You don't know Jack. You know Jack, but you don't know Pooh, do you? That's right. And I'll tell you something else. I got a show coming out. It's Ask Jack. Hashtag Ask Jack. And I'm going to have a teleconference. And I'm going to have Rich is putting it together. And I'm going to have my own show. Now, how about that, son? And I wouldn't have you on there, Dale. I wouldn't even let you take the garbage out. I wouldn't let you cut my grass, clean the commode, or wipe my you-know-what. Now, you take that and stuff it, son. You want to get together? Hey, you meet me somewhere, talk about my team. I will turn you upside down, son. When I got through with you, you'd see. Yes, sir, Mr. Larry. Yes, sir. You understand that? Now roll down tide and stick it.
Yeah. If you if you put the show on, like, let's say you're driving, you're right outside of New York or in L.A. and you figure I'm gonna catch up on sports today. I put on satellite the ESPN extra channel. You've got to be wondering what in the world you're listening to right now. This was a sports show until about 20 minutes ago. I have no idea what has happened. Let's get it back on track. Mike is in Florida, and you are on the air. Hello, Mike.
How are you doing?
We are doing great. Thank you.
I wanted to talk about the Florida quarterback competition.
Excellent.
And I got a different take than Lance. I think based on what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, Emory Jones has got potential to be great, but he's not quite there yet. And I don't think he's polished enough, quite frankly, to be thrown into the heat of an SEC schedule. I think he's got to be developed a little bit more. But then what it comes down to is everybody's talking about Felipe Franks, and I know you're showing a clip, I guess, on one of your lead-ins of him throwing about a 70-yard pass to break Tennessee's heart at the end of the game. But Felipe's got some issues, too. And his issues have to do with reading progressions and, quite frankly, accuracy. Now, the guy that's the sleeper, and nobody's really talking that much about, is Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask didn't start in high school because he was behind a super athlete. But when he did get in, he had excellent stats with excellent percentage completions. And so far, I guess he redshirted last year because he had a foot injury. But so far, through the spring, he's demonstrated an ability and accuracy to move the team. And I'm not talking about long bombs. I'm not talking about big plays just. I'm talking about sustained drives. And I think that's one of the problems Florida had because they didn't have enough sustained drives last year, and the defense got worn down. I think the offense is going to have to stay on the field longer and let the defense take care of business on its end of it as long as the offense is producing enough to keep some points on the board and keep the defense somewhat fresh. But I think Kyle Trask, all said and done, in my mind, would be the guy to start the season. But I'm not sure that everybody views it that way. They look at Philippe Franks as an athlete, and I think he's an excellent athlete. But I look at his downside, too, and I'm worried that he's not going to be able to do much better than he did last year.
Hey, I hate to interrupt, Mike. Mike, thank you very much. You did save the show, by the way. We will send you the the autographed copy of the show book. Thanks for the call. I don't know how to answer your question because I think it's a little bit early, but I do believe that Dan Mullen is the right coach to figure that situation out. Thank you for the call. Up against a break. More phone calls, more guests. It is Wednesday. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Craig is in Chattanooga. You're on the air. Go right ahead.
Paul, hey, how you doing, sir? Thanks for taking our phone call.
Thank you.
Called yesterday, and you wished my sweetie pie.
Oh,
Amber
yeah.
Wilson. Yeah, very happy birthday.
I'm really happy about that.
Yes, sir, my fiance. I got off the phone quickly and just wanted to let you know that everything is okay. It was startling. What happened was her brother Slim got his truck stuck in a mud pit and totally lost his it was a brand new truck.
Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah.
What kind of truck was it? What kind of truck?
It's Sierra.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Brand new truck. Well,
Been
I
looking for a
ended
truck.
up proposing to Amber later that night.
Oh, you're proposing.
Tremendous news, though it's true. Prager's, Paul. We are pregnant.
She's pregnant?
We are. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know the
boy.
expression. We're having a baby. Yeah, I got that. So, she's pregnant and expecting when?
Well, in the next 5 or 6 months. We're so very happy.
Congratulations.
So, yes, sir. Yeah, so we decided to call the young
That
baby.
is so good. Thanks for the call. Squirrel, we really don't believe a word of that. Squirrel, did you believe any of that, or did I hit the trigger too quickly?
Fortunately, I didn't catch any of it.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what you're talking about.
So you didn't just hear what happened on the show?
This guy that you just hung up on?
Yeah, I mean, he was. My assessment was that he was not telling the truth. That's what I meant.
Oh yeah, he was definitely telling a lie, and I can smell a lie a mile away. You know that. Great show so far today.
Thank you.
A lot of interesting calls and what have you. Can I ask you a question?
You may.
You miss Jim, don't you, Paul? You miss him, don't you? I can tell after about a week or so without a good Jim call, I can tell you really miss him. He's going to call back. You just got to keep faith. He's going to call back soon.
Squirrel, I've learned that you have to move on, and I am moving on because
he's coming back.
No, I don't want him back.
Okay, you sounded like the jilted lover now. He's really coming back.
I'm not going to admit I'm jilted, but the point is that I have decided I have to go on without him.
Yeah, and you said his best call of the year was after Scott.
Yeah,
call
because that's the only call where he actually said something.
All right, and he says that same phone call every year, if you'll recall. Usually 15 to 20 minutes after.
Squirrel, I didn't delineate that call from any other. I just simply made a statement. That was his best call of this year.
Well, I personally heard that same call that he gave.
But Squirrel,
the Scott speech.
I would agree with you on that, but I still stand by that was his best call of this year.
But I've heard that same call 8 or 9 years in a row.
Okay, well, I'm not going to.
And then the next time he calls in, it's the same old Jim again. So again, I mean,
I think deep down, Jim has a lot of spiritual thoughts.
Oh, no doubt.
And
he'll give you a prayer, and he'll take a prayer away from you in a heartbeat.
Well, you know, giveth and taketh away. We know that
If you
one.
piss him off, he will take that prayer right away from you.
But I think he wants to be, and I think like all of us, he's striving to be a better person.
He's still striving to make Cooperstown. I mean, you know that. So,
But I think the problem for Jim though is that there's there's an evil force at work.
But I can tell you miss him because watching you pump up Matt from Gainesville is comical.
Hey, Squirrel, can we turn the mic off for a second and just the two of us talk?
Sure.
Given the smorgasbord of callers that I have, Squirrel,
sure,
wouldn't you try to pump some of these people up?
Oh, no. But, you know, he was compelling, let's say, the first two times he called in because he was kind of new. And after that, I mean, today, was he singing or doing a poem or something?
I don't know.
That had to be a high point.
He's in trouble. I mean, as a good caller, he's leaking oil.
I know one of your top 10 callers. Your new prodigy to take Jim's place. You're grooming him. I mean, we can tell. I mean, that had to be a proud moment for you.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Call. Yeah.
If you had to identify the best and most compelling callers right now on this show, where would you go?
I would go Homer.
Homer?
I would go Millie when she's talking about when she was a go-go dancer.
Okay, well, that's
some of those things.
Yeah, I would agree. That Millie circa 1968 is really interesting.
Yeah, if you get Millie talking about the early days of Joe Namath and things of that nature. But when she's talking about being nervousy about everybody wanting to go all the way in football, I mean, that's just,
Yeah, no, I don't want Millie's. I don't want Millie's questions where she's read the newspaper that day in the sports section and asked me some perfunctory question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, get her that iPad and she'll be able to keep up with current events. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Yeah, that call will not rank among the best callers of the year either. Let's continue. Joe, can you save the show? We are now in the emergency round of can you save the show?
Yes, I can save the show, Paul. And how are y'all doing today?
We're doing great, thank you.
Well, I see Squirrel still. He can't get off of Jim. I reckon that's the only thing that he knows in his brain is Jim. If Jim's on his brain so much, that's all he is Jim. I know he really loves him. He's got to, but Squirrel, really, we're tired of hearing about Jim. And Darriel in Columbus, now, Paul, he gets ignorant every time he gets on the phone. I mean, he probably eats hummingbirds for chicken nuggets and uses the outhouse to brush his teeth. And Darriel, your team is losers. You freaking cat butt sniffer. Quit calling because nobody cares what you say. And Paul, I do have another question about this top 10 poll. Of course, who came up with this? Did you say was it John?
John and Mark.
John and Mark. Well, I mean. There's some of those I can't really agree with. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be a crybaby here, but you can take somebody that's never even called him before and beat some of these guys. And I don't know, where y'all would place me at, but, I don't know if 11 through 20 would be the second round. Maybe y'all need to come out with the second round. Can I ask John and Mark something?
You can ask Mark and Randy.
Well, Mark and Randy.
Hello, Joe.
Would I even make the top 20?
I think so. I mean, I think you're definitely top 15. But I think that, Joe, you got to have a little bit more substance.
You can't tell every caller they're top 15.
Well, why not?
Hold on. Can you get that hot take thing going, please?
Randy!
Yeah.
But I think Joe has quality.
Mark, do you think Joe's a top 15 caller?
Joe, I think you're a great role player. But if I were to build a team, you'd be on the team. I don't know if you'd be my top pick, but you'd have a spot on the roster.
But, Paul, think about it. How many regular callers do we have? 15 or 20?
Hold
on. Top 15 is pretty good.
Wait.
I think we have more than that.
You want to take? I've got to take.
Okay, there you go, Randy.
Joe
Joe
for Red Bay, top 15.
Mark is not. Randy. Mark is not agreeing, Joe. And John Hayes just texted me and said top 15, and then he had a laughing emoji.
Okay, well, I mean, ask me a sports question.
Now hold on a second, Joe. We talking top 15 in Alabama or top 15 on the show?
on the show.
Oh, okay. No, you
top 15 in the 6:15 segment.
Well,
Joe, here's what I would tell you, Joe.
Make the third round, maybe 28, Joe, 29.
This is what I would tell you. You play an important role on this program, and I think that you have the celebrity callers, and then you have the substantive talkers, guys like you that always call in with an interesting take. Whether it's a shot at Auburn, a shot at I-Man, that's your role.
Well, I'm friends with I-Man, so I won't say a lot about him now, but I can tell him this. When he was talking about doing his show and asked who was going to listen to him, exactly, because nobody really listens to him on this show.
And by the way, Joe, just for the record, we've been keeping track of the last 3 days. Randy has now told 74 people they're in his top 15.
Randy!
Well, we're up against a break. Back with the remaining top 15 callers in the final 30 minutes right after this. You've got to be wondering what in the world you're listening to right now.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
And welcome back. We are, believe it or not, going to talk about something substantive here. Heather Dinnich would be joining us in a second. She's been covering the spring meetings of the College Football Playoff Committee. And Heather, always great to talk to you. How are you?
I'm good, but I think you oversold it on substantive. There's just not much going on here.
Well, I always view spring meetings as a great opportunity just to go someplace like a resort. But this is at the actual place where their office is, isn't it?
It's nearby the college football playoff offices. Yeah. They're at the Four Seasons here.
Well, maybe I should have. It is a resort. I take it back.
It's a resort. Yeah.
So what if anything has or will be going on?
So all of the commissioners here, with the exception of Jim Delaney from the Big Ten, are here for meetings. ESPN television executives are here, and the athletic directors from all the teams that were in the semifinals, as well as outgoing committee chair Kirby Hocutt and incoming committee chair Rob Mullins from Oregon, all here just to kind of rehash and say what went well, what didn't go well in the last year of the college football playoff. And to be quite honest, there are no recommendations to change anything. And Bill Hancock walked out of the meeting a couple of minutes ago. I said, "What happened in there today?" And he said, and I quote, "Nothing." Nobody recommended any changes.
Which leads me to ask you this, Heather. These are all friendly people. They're cordial. They're collegial. They probably spent most of the time talking about what Condoleezza Rice said earlier today. But beyond that, it's just basically a standard pro forma review. Would that be fair?
It is. The ESPN television executives go in and then they talk about the viewership and things like that, and looking forward to the next national championship. And then the committee members, committee chairs, I should say, they talk about the experience from their seats in that meeting room. And I have interviewed every single selection committee chair, committee member, that rotated off, and talk to them about all of their experiences. And even the people who aren't in that room anymore have talked about the positives, and they don't see any reason to change the protocol or how they determine the four best teams. Even though there were two teams from one conference, the SEC, there are no talks about changing that or really the value of a conference championship game. So people who run this show inside and out like where it's at right now.
Okay, well, we want to ask you something. We've had a lot of conversations on some pretty high platforms about strength of schedule. In fact, last year, very early, I think it was about 7:30 on the morning of the selection, we had pretty spirited, conversation about Alabama's schedule. What's interesting, Heather, is even though Alabama's schedule was a debatable issue last year, that schedule may look better than the schedule going into the season. Now, events change. I'm going to read it to you in case you're not familiar with it. Opening against Louisville, that's the premier game. That's the Florida State game of last year and the Southern Cal game of the year before, the games that we all thought would prop Alabama up. Arkansas State at Ole Miss, A&M, Louisiana at Arkansas, Missouri at Tennessee, at LSU, Mississippi State, and here comes the big one on the 17th, Heather, the Citadel, ending the season at home against Auburn. Now, if Louisville is not particularly stellar this year after Lamar Jackson, what are Alabama's concerns? I mean, I realize we're talking going in, but what could their concerns be with this schedule?
Well, it's a very real thing. Alabama fans don't want to hear this, but I can promise you that on that morning, around 6 a.m. in the wee hours when they were trying to figure that out on Selection Day, it was a topic of their conversation. And if there's any doubt that Alabama is one of the top 4 teams in the country, this is where it comes under the microscope. And Arkansas State, which was 7-5 last year, and the Citadel was 5-6 last year. Like you said, if Louisville's not very good, those things do matter, and that can be the difference. Now, like you pointed out on Selection Day, when you watch Alabama, do they look like one of the 4 best teams? Heck yeah, they did. And I think had Ohio State played better in its conference championship, had Ohio State last year not lost that game in embarrassing fashion to Iowa, then maybe that would have played more of a role. So it's hard to say without knowing what all the other teams in contention are doing, but it's important and it is a factor, and those 4 teams could hurt Alabama.
Let's go to Georgia's schedule, Heather, because they're also a major contender to get back to the national championship game. I'll try to do this with a straight face, okay? They open with Austin Peay. Yes. At South Carolina, Middle Tennessee, at Missouri, Tennessee Vanderbilt, at LSU, Florida, at Kentucky, Auburn, UMass on the Cupcake Saturday, and they end the season with their big matchup of the year, non-conference, I might add, Georgia Tech.
No margin for error. No margin for error there. And look, the difference between Alabama and Georgia when you're comparing these two things is the division. Georgia needs the SEC East to be better, and it has to win those games. Alabama at least has the tougher division that it's playing in. Louisville is a more formidable opponent right now than Georgia Tech is. It's just... And, by the way, Alabama usually gets the benefit of the doubt because they're pretty darn good, right? And they do pass the eye test. When you look at Georgia and those particularly those non-conference teams that you mentioned, Austin Peay, Middle Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech, to me, I see no margin for error in Georgia's schedule. When I say that, I mean, can they lose a game? Yes, they can lose a game, but there are going to be other teams with better schedules that also lose a game, and they would probably be ranked higher than Georgia.
Yeah, and one of the big conversation pieces last year, Alabama played Florida State. Florida State was number 3 at the time. So, do you know whether Alabama got the benefit of the doubt on that fact in that committee room?
Well, the committee acknowledged that Florida State was a different team with DeAndre Francois. Absolutely. Sure. But you can't ignore the downward spiral that happened to the Seminoles even after that game. I mean, a lot of people going into that season, myself included, thought that Florida State's defense was going to be great. And that was part of the problem for a bulk of the season. So as it turned out, Florida State wasn't that great. Were they a top 5 team the day they played Alabama? Probably not, but they certainly weren't as bad as they were at the end of the season when they had been able to keep DeAndre Francois in the lineup.
Great stuff, as always, Heather. We just wanted to give everyone a preview of what could be some of the big talking points of the upcoming college football season. Don't wear yourself out covering those meetings out there, okay?
I'll try not to. Thanks, Paul.
Always great to catch up with Heather Dinnich, joining us from Grapevine, Texas. We still have a little time left for you right here on the show. We're coming right back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Welcome back to the program. Greg is up next. How are you, Greg?
Hey, Paul. It was an interesting car ride home from work listening to the list callers.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me think about the list I was on, and that was those who were qualified to serve on submarines. That was the only one I wanted because you didn't want to be on the delinquent list.
No, you didn't.
So I think it's a great list. All those people bring something to the show, and Darriel kind of got in tune to what Randy was telling him, and then he went off the rails. But I think he talks with marbles, or he talks with one of those 1980s battery phones that look like a walkie-talkie, because I have a hard time listening to him as well, whether it's on the car or on the TV show. But it's frustrating because sometimes he'll say something that makes sense, and you want to make sure that you actually heard it before you give him credit for it. But I think, Blake Barnett apparently has decided that he doesn't want to be at Arizona State anymore.
Yeah, Blake, who left Alabama, now is leaving Arizona State, looking at Florida. I wonder why he's not going to reunite with his old buddy Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, because it said he was going to Southern Florida or
South Florida.
USF? Yeah, so I don't know, because I thought he would go with Lane, or at least go to UCF, and then they could, continue their championship run. But
yeah, he probably couldn't make the taxi squad at UCF.
That's not going to happen. But his example is one of those things that would happen more frequently if we decided to do away with transfer rules and just let them do what they want. And I don't think that's good for the sport. If you're going to transfer more than once, it's not going to create.
Yeah, I agree. There's only, Alabama. If you fail at two places, I'm not sure I've heard of a player. Well, Cam Newton. Let's see, he went Florida, Blinn Jr., Auburn. So it has happened before.
Yes, and I heard your conversation with Heather Dinnich, and I like her, and you were showing the Alabama schedule on TV, and I don't want to go to Tuscaloosa to watch the Citadel.
No.
Or Arkansas State. They have their multi-game packages, but you got to buy two of those cupcake.
That Alabama schedule is downright embarrassing.
So we got to change it. And maybe it needs to just be changed league-wide and knock those games out, or just have one.
Well, the league has tried to jazz up that cupcake weekend a little bit. I'm trying to remember. I don't have a schedule in front of me, but there have been better games on that weekend. But it's still a terrible weekend.
Well, wouldn't it have more legitimacy if we were playing Illinois or Indiana?
Yeah,
or even Texas Tech.
No, I think Alabama can do better than that.
Yeah. So. And they're not the only ones.
But you know what? Greg, at worst, play someone in the neighborhood. All the schools that play UAB, South Alabama, Troy. Play a school in the state that at least could benefit from it.
I agree. Well, I just wanted to call in and say, hey, I like the list. I know why it's there, and I understand it. And if people just accept it, that's the thing about lists is everybody's got one, or you can make your own if you don't like the one you see. And enjoy it, because we've got the best radio show around. So thanks for taking my call. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Really good to hear from you. We're short on time. We'll try to get to as many callers as possible. Let's check out Art next. How are you, Art?
Well, Paul, and I want to express that there's never a question about you controlling the locker room. However, there have been I know you've been bathing in a lot of dogs, Paul. So I'm not trying to make any kind of thing up about who controls the locker room or who's on the list or whatever. But, when these guys speak up like that, they got to get ready.
Ready to do what?
Think about it. You got Herb Street. Larry could very easily come in with the crying, but anybody can tell the truth because he's the cleanup. And as far as bathing dogs, Paul, I'm not even close to that. Boomer, just Greg called in a little while ago. He damn well is good.
Okay. Hey, thanks for the call. Really got a lot out of that one. Jordan is in Daytona Beach. How are you, Jordan?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, because I noticed in recent years that the SEC championship has somewhat been jeopardizing the chances of teams being in the top 4. And so I was just thinking, I was wondering about the legitimacy of having the SEC championship occur in the spring as sort of a, entrance into the new year type of, engagement where, the champion of the East, champion of the West, just in a way that it doesn't mess up, a team's chances of going to the national championship, and it can still be special to. So
let me make sure, Jordan. Simply put, what are you suggesting different than what we have now?
Possibly a move, a moving of the SEC championship. And I don't know, if that's even possible because
Jordan, let me jump in here. It's not possible. I mean, do you realize the amount of money that game brings in, the significance of that game? It's one of the most highly viewed, I think it was last year, the most highly viewed regular season game of the year. You play the entire season divisionally to get to that game, and I'm not sure I understand your solution to the problem. I mean, I realize it can cost, but last year it hurt Auburn, but it benefited Georgia. So it has, in at least in modern history, it has not cost an SEC team a shot. You probably have to go back to maybe 2003, or was it 2001 when Tennessee, by losing that game to an inferior team, it cost them a chance of the national championship. But since then, the winner of that game has been in the running. The podcast available on the app and the Apple Podcasts. You've got to be wondering what in the world you're listening to right now.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.